For over 15 years, Saturdays and a Legal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we welcome you to day 2 coverage of the 2026 NHL Draft. It was a great night last night in downtown Winnipeg. We're ready for an exciting morning as well, where we will recap everything that has gone on and get you set for day 2 coverage as well. With Dave Minuk in the top right, Ezra Ginsburg in the bottom middle. I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours, 2+ hours. The plus being plus, we'll see. I'm not sure how long that plus will actually mean, but we'll be here for a while to bring you the latest Jets coverage, talk about the upcoming picks. Of course, the Jets don't draft until the third round of this morning's second day of the draft, but lots to talk about this morning. The coffee's on. The lawn has been mowed. Let's get into it. Gentlemen, great to see you again after last night's fun show at Canada Life Center.
What's up, boys? What's up, everybody who's watching live here and going to be listening on the podcast? It was a lot of fun last night. It really was. What did we do, boys? About 3.5 hours, I think.
3.5 hours, yes, sir.
Which is all in a day's work, right? But it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of buzz, and basically, guys, it's turned into you've heard of Beatlemania, you've heard of Hulkamania, and yes, this was a pre-scripted comment, but it's now Vigomania because lots of Jets fans here are pretty
write
excited.
it down, or were you able to remember it?
It's all up here, Drew.
Okay. You might need to workshop it a little bit better, but I appreciate the effort.
Oh, you don't like Vigomania?
I don't. I mean, manias, gates, they've all jumped the shark. Actually using the phrase "jump the shark" is jump the shark. But we need to sort of come up with a new sort of lingo as a society that we can lean on.
Well, we'll let the chat decide if they like Vigomania, but regardless if you like it or not, Drew, you are maniacal. So, but I mean, a lot of people are clearly excited about Vigo Bjork, right? Like we had Craig Button on the show a month ago. We had Shane Malloy on a couple of weeks ago, and both of them thought that Vigo Bjork would be an excellent pick at 8th overall, right, Dave? And it was sure fun to have Sasha Boumedian on the show. As he was, checking behind him to see, it wasn't quite the pick when we had him on, but Sasha and Vigo have obviously played together. Their dads played together. So to get a center prospect like that in the Jets system is pretty excited. And I haven't seen too many Jets fans that are upset with the pick.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, like I said, this feels very, very 2014. This is a manifesting of Nikolai Ehlers. A lot of Jets fans wanted Vigo Bjork, and Jets fans got Vigo Bjork. And I understand that some are disappointed. They wanted maybe a guy like Keaton Verhoff, who went the pick after the Jets made this their selection. But like I said, this kid, I'm not going to pretend to have ever watched any of his SHL games. As we might have watched him internationally, but for all intents and purposes, if you listen to the folks who are paid to go and watch these prospects. I mean, I posted it on after we finished our show. We got up the comments from, Kevin Cheveldayoff was practically like giggling. He was so happy that they got Vigo Bjork. So I think that's a little bit of a tell that the Jets GM was ecstatic over the selection and the. He in his media availability, and Ezzy and I listened to it on the drive home. Drew, I'm sure you've watched it as well. Yes, but he basically said they. My guess is if they thought that Bjork was gone, and there were probably 3 defensemen left that they liked, they were actually contemplating a move down. Now, the funny part was that Cheveldayoff almost admitted which team he was about to move down to, and and Ezzy and I were kind of like, oh, he's about to say it, and he didn't say it, but my presumption is he was only going to move down a spot or two. Probably try and pick up, maybe a second or a third round pick to make up for the one he lost that he doesn't have, right? So
that was the price to pay at that. If you were moving down, we saw last night with the number of move downs. If you were moving down just a couple spots, especially that high in the draft, the cost was going to be, obviously the pick swap, and then it was going to be a second round pick. We saw later in the draft it was a third round pick. So I think you're probably right, Dave. And here's what Kevin Cheveldayoff said. The Murat Atesh of The Athletic just published a new article about the Jets night last night. Murat is going to join us in about 20 minutes time. Kevin Shoveldayoff said, we had a potential trade engineered to move back. We had that in the can in case we needed, but when Bjork was available, that team called and they couldn't answer quick enough to tell them no. So, I mean, you sort of get some insight into the Jets thinking there that, if Bjork wasn't available, they were going to move down a couple, probably pick up, as you said, that second round pick, maybe a third round pick somewhere in that vicinity. But Vigo was obviously the apple of their eye to a significant degree that he didn't even blink twice at running to the podium to make that selection and add the Swedish centerman to the Jets roster of young talent.
Yeah, and I was saying this last night. Sorry, Dave. I'll let you get in here. I like Vigo Bjork so much that I thought he might go as high as 4th or 5th overall, right? Like, and obviously he didn't, and the Jets get him at 8th overall. But listening to what the draft experts were saying about him, and specifically Craig Button on our show, talking about how he was Sweden's best player at the World Juniors and how he's the Swedish Nick Suzuki. I mean, I think a lot of teams. I'd love to know. I'd love to be a fly on the wall to know how close some of those, like Seattle, for example. Like, I bet that was a tough decision for them. I bet they were seriously looking at Vigo Bjork, right, Dave? So I think Dave makes a lot of good points when he compares this to Nikolai Ehlers. Obviously, Bjork is more of a two-way forward, and obviously you're talking about a center versus a winger. But I think the point is that the skill set is really high, and the Jets are really happy to pick him up at 8th overall.
Well, the pedigree and his achievements very early in his career are worth noting. So, I mean, he was this is just came out, I see on Twitter, Nick Lynham sort of did a nice thread talking about all the achievements. So shout
out to Nick Lynham, because he's the president of the Vigo Bjork fan club.
Well, credit where it's due here. In Sweden, he set the J20, that's their junior league, National League points record at the age of 16. 24 points ahead of second place. So he wasn't just a couple points up on second place. He was a mile ahead of second place at the age of 16. The previous record was been held by 18-year-olds. Again, this is a strong achievement at a very young age. He was a champion in that league as well. He was the number 1 center on a men's Swedish team at the age of 17. I mean, the Swedish Hockey League, I mean, it's not the NHL, it's not the AHL, but we know that it's a decent caliber of hockey, and it's a man's league.
Let's call it what it is, Drew. It's the best league in Europe.
Yes, it's no question it's the best league in Europe, and it's a man's league. Yeah. It's not a league that you typically hand 17-year-olds the top-line center duties and have them, hold their own / even excel to some degree. That is an impressive achievement. Became the youngest player and youngest goal scorer to represent Sweden's national team at the World Hockey Championships, where he was playing the number 1 center role at the Worlds for Team Sweden between Stenberg and Lucas Raymond, playing ahead of Anton Frondell of the Chicago Blackhawks, who's been in the league now. I think he finished his second year now.
No, he was drafted last year.
What, last year? Okay, sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Okay. 18 points in 45 games at the age of 17 in the Swedish league is one of the best historic seasons for a draft-eligible player. World Junior gold medalist, widely regarded as Sweden's best player in that tournament. We talked, of course, to Sasha about that as well. Again, none of this necessarily translates to the NHL, but when you have this list of achievements, Dave, seems like a pretty good bet from my perspective that this wouldn't be a player that you would expect to bust out, despite him not being prototypically sized at this stage of his life.
Yeah, I think, again, like I said, the proof will be in the pudding, Drew. I mean, it's very nice for us to give assessments. And again, it's very difficult to talk about a player that we do not have a large sample size of viewing and pretend like we have some sort of assessment. Look, I welcome everyone to come to Hockey for All Center next week. Watch him on the ice with other Jets prospects. See how he does against, guys like 6'5" Kieran Walton or I mean, look at Kevin He. Kevin He isn't big, but his motor doesn't stop, right? So I'm just saying that size is important, but you can go through the list. Seth Jarvis isn't big. Logan Stankoven isn't big. Lane Hudson isn't big. There's guys who excel in the NHL and they aren't big. So again, you're not asking him to become your first line center. You're saying that, maybe eventually you might want to, but
not
again,
tomorrow, you mean?
Right. And so again, like I said, I can't sit here and I can just tell you what the experts, and again, don't get me wrong. I agree with some of the comments in the chat. The experts don't always get it right, Ezzy? Because as we were walking out, and I was kind of joking about how every single pick is the next Wayne Gretzky. You read the rave reviews of these guys, and you're like, this guy, nothing he can do, nothing wrong. Well, again, like I said, this is just, you heard it from Vigo Bjork yesterday, and we have his media availability on the site. We may get a chance to hear from Vigo on today's show as they transition from Buffalo to Winnipeg. But I think it's one of those situations where, again, it's one step in their journey, right? They've been drafted, and now it really becomes the next stage, which is, going back to the SHL most likely and having a really good season there. And then you hope, if you're the Jets, that he's able to just jump straight to the NHL as opposed to the AHL. And that kind of kickstarts you off in the 27-28 season. But I have no idea, right? He may be able to play next year in the NHL. Nobody knows. None of us know. That's the thing. That's the beauty of this. So that's why when people make definitive statements in terms of what this player's ability is going to be at the NHL level, he's going to be X. You don't know that. With all due respect, there are how many guys, Connor Hellebuck, when he was drafted in the 5th round, Ezzy, out of the Odessa Jackalopes, how many people said this guy's going to win 3 Vezina awards and a Hart Trophy? None. We covered that draft. We weren't, he was at the Pittsburgh draft, right? So we weren't there in Pittsburgh, but we covered it. We didn't know one way or another. We reported it the way we reported every other draft pick that year. So I'm just saying that I just caution people. I pump the brakes both ways. You can't tell me it's the steal because we don't know how he's going to be at the NHL level. And that's why I laughed this morning because, already last night, winners and losers. How do we know who's a winner and a loser? It's been 5 minutes since these guys were drafted, but
I can tell you who's a winner: Winnipeg and definitely San Jose. San Jose's a winner. But no, to your point, Dave. Yeah, look. I'm not going to pump the brakes. I think Vigo Bjork is going to be an amazing player. And again, what is that based on? That's based on what I've seen, the highlights I've seen, and what all of the draft experts are saying. Right? Like Drew just listed off all of his accomplishments, courtesy of our friend Nick Lynham. And the thing I think that impresses me the most is I watched a little bit of Sweden at the World Hockey Championship. When you're excelling at that level at 18 years old, and I don't have his stats in front of me here. I know he scored a goal because I saw him score a goal. But when you're excelling at that level at 18 years old, that's like Macklin Celebrini type of stuff. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that Vigo Bjork is Macklin Celebrini. He's not going to score 115 points in the NHL. That's not going to happen. But what I'm saying is it's very rare for an 18-year-old, first off, to make the senior team at the World Championship, but to be a top player is another thing, right? So, World Junior Gold, all of these accomplishments, and everything that we're hearing about him from the scouts is that the Jets have a really good player. Now, what does that mean? Is he going to be a 70-point player at the NHL level? Is he going to be an 80-point player? Like Dave said, we have no idea. He's 18 years old. But again, I mentioned it earlier, Vigo Mania. You better get on board or you're going to miss out.
Yeah, he had 6 points in 8 games at the World Hockey Championships. It's not a small. It's impressive. It's hard not to look at that and be impressed. Here's what Anton Frondel had to say about him. This is at the World Juniors. Quote, "He's the youngest player on this team and he plays like the oldest. He's not the tallest guy, but he's so strong. When he has the puck, it's impossible to take it from him. His shot is incredible. On the power play, his hockey sense, his playmaking, it's special. And he's all around, offensive and defensive. A 200-foot player." This is what the Winnipeg Jets desperately needed. They desperately needed a high intelligence, two-way, all-around, solid bet to be a key driver on your team. not necessarily next year, but the kind of guy that a coach can throw over the boards in all situations. And frankly, I mean, with no disrespect to Mark Scheifele, we know where Mark Scheifele has his drawbacks. He's not defensively sound. We know where Adam Lowry has his drawbacks. He's not an offensive dynamo. If you can get a guy who you can play on the power play and on the PK, have the Jets ever had a centerman like that who can sort of go out there and really an all situations high level kind of guy? I mean,
I don't think they've had it since Brian Little.
I was going to say Brian Little maybe at his peak, but even then he never was respected enough for what he actually did on both ends of the ice.
I agree with you on that, Drew. I think Little was underrated.
Yeah, no question. I would say Brian Little's the closest guy they've ever had to being a real 200-foot centerman who's got upside on both ends of the ice, Dave. So again, the draft is all about hope. I mean, if you finished your first day of the draft and you're going, woe is us, oh my God, I mean, that's not a really good position to be in. So I understand those who are hesitant, totally legitimate. Yeah. I understand those who look at his size and are obsessed about that he's not prototypically sized. I mean, the counterpoint to that, of course, is look at around the league and look at similarly undersized players and the success that they're having. But for a Winnipeg Jets organization and a fan base that was desperately in need of some really good news and a really good player, I'd say they got that last night, Dave.
Well, and just for the people who are listening on the podcast, KF2356 reported, although we lost the comment for a second, but his dad had a late growth spurt and ended up at 6'2". Vigo may still even grow, which is what I said yesterday, right? As in, we don't know. He's 18 years old. We have no clue what his ceiling is in that regard, or his ceiling is at the NHL level, right, Drew? So, look, well, like I said, I just think that I understand that some folks are ecstatic, some folks are cautious. I just think that come and watch the kid on Tuesday at Hockey for All, watch him on Wednesday, watch him on Thursday, and then see him in the scrimmage on Friday. And you'll get a chance to kind of see the player, and you can make your own sort of assessment based on what you're watching, not what, Craig Button is saying or Jason Bukala is saying or Sam Constantino is saying, because that's all we're going on right now, right? We've watched a little bit of, maybe seeing him at World Juniors, or as Drew said, in the World Hockey Championships, whatever it's going to be. You've had but again, when he's not a Jets prospect, when there's a limited understanding, like, okay, this kid be a guy the Jets get with the 8th, fine, you're paying a little more attention. But again, I just think that I'd rather watch the kid play, because quite honestly, when the Jets drafted Kevin He with the fourth round pick, you're kind of like, okay, he's 4th round pick, whatever. And then you watch him in at skates here in Winnipeg, and you're like, okay, this kid's motor doesn't shut off. And I understand. I get what people are saying. Well, it's a 1st round pick, not a 4th round pick, or Connor Hellebuck was a 6th round pick. I'm just saying that I would just, like I said, if you're ecstatic or you're poo-pooing or you're somewhere in between, come down, say hello, and make your assessment based on, watching him for a few days and getting an assessment of how he stacks up against other, prospects in the system.
Can I just mention one thing? And hopefully this is the last time we're going to talk about this today.
It's probably not going to be whatever you're going to say.
Well, no, I think the size thing is absolutely absurd. I actually think that his size is an asset, and I'll explain to you what I mean. Dave already mentioned Seth Jarvis is 5'9", 5'10". Logan Stankoven is 5'8", 5'9". I mean, do you want me to keep going here? Like Cole Caulfield, he just finished 2nd in goals, 51. Alex DeBrincat, a 3-time 40-goal scorer. Like, do you want me to go back to Brian Gionta winning a cup for the Devils at 5'7"? Like, we can go all the way back to, guys like Joe Mullen and Theron Fleury and Mats Naslund. Like to me, it's almost like the media. I said this to Dave yesterday. It's almost like the media keeps bringing this up. Like, there are lots of good 5'8", 5'9" hockey players. Okay, so maybe he ends up at 5'10", 5'11". Like,
as he managed to mute himself. He was so fired up.
He was fired there. He was fired up. He muted himself.
He was muting himself. He got so fired up.
And Craig Button always talks about this, right? Like he always talks about size is not like. I just think it's ridiculous how many good players there have been in the NHL over the years, and I just listed a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because he's 5'9", he plays with that chip on his shoulder. And Carolina is a perfect example. What was Carolina known for? They were known for having smaller, skilled forwards, right? Seth Jarvis, Logan Stankoven, Jackson Blake, who's, what is he, 5'10", Dave? 5'11", Jackson Blake?
Seems like it.
So, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous that if people are looking at his size and they're saying, like, he's not big enough to be a center, a quality center in the NHL, I just think it's absurd. So hopefully we're not going to be talking about that much after today.
Well, I mean, I admire your optimism there. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be the case, but I mean, again, it's changing slowly. Seems to be changing at least, but this is still a size-obsessed league. It's a size-obsessed league for a certain amount of the fan.
That worked out for Logan Stanley.
Well, I mean, look at the guy that Philly drafted late in that first round last night. What was he, 6'7" and a quarter or something like that?
Well, he was a monster.
He was a monster, but I mean, most people you looked at, they said that was not a good draft pick because he was taken way higher than the expectation was where most scouts had him. So I mean, Philly obviously got enamored by his size last night.
Again, like I said,
it depends on what you do with your size. There's some guys who play small at a bigger size, and some guys who play large at a smaller size. So, I again look outside, look beyond the numbers, and watch him play with your own two eyes.
Exactly,
point, Dave. Go to Hockey for All Center this coming week. Open to the public. Just show up there. Watch him with your own two eyes, and see if he. See all the prospects. Make your own determination. It's your opportunity to do so.
Zach Benson, by the way, TH Coward. Zach Benson's a good. Just got a 7-year deal out of the Buffalo Sabres, and look, some guys have the dog in them, right, Ezzy? And that's what you hear. So it doesn't look. Some guys.
I do. I actually do, Dave. I have rabies.
Yeah. So
sorry to throw you off on that one.
No, it's good. I mean, it's probably true, right? So I mean,
we're just waiting for you to officially announce that.
It does explain the frothing at the mouth. So I mean, I'm a little bit.
He was really hungry though last night after the first round of the draft, Dave. So I mean, that was to be expected.
Actually, sorry. Let's be realistic. If we're doing the number one question, Ezzy, when you drop me off, the big question. Yeah. What did you go for after the drop off?
Okay, I know people are really excited about.
We know
that.
It wasn't a salad.
No. You don't make friends with salad, Drew.
No.
I was contemplating Burger King, so I was driving down Portage Avenue and I was thinking about maybe going to see the King and picking up a double Whopper. I ended up going with a pizza. I picked up a nice Little Caesars pizza. If anybody's curious about what I like to get at Little Caesars, I like to get the thin crust barbecue chicken.
Okay, that's actually more reasonable than I was expecting, to be perfectly honest.
I definitely thought you stopped at like McDonald's and Burger King and possibly ordered Wendy's via DoorDash, to be honest with you. So
that is, as he's demonstrating responsibility at snarfling some food at 10:30 at night. But that's good on you, Ezzy. Good job. Way to come around and come on board.
Desert Lab makes a good observation. It's not froth from Ezzy. It's donut icing.
Very true.
Anyways, Murat Atesh set to join us coming up momentarily here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We'll talk, of course, about the drafting of Vigo Bjork. We'll talk about Connor Hellebuyck as well, because Hellebuyck is still a member of the Winnipeg Jets. For a while there, yesterday, maybe a couple days ago, it seemed like that likely wasn't going to be the case. We know that the Jets and Buffalo were in discussions. We know they got somewhere in those discussions. Where they didn't get to is the finish line with regard to Connor Hellebuyck. So now that seems to be a little bit more on the back burner, of course, pardon the cliche, but that can change with just one phone call. What now with the Winnipeg Jets goaltender? Is it now time, as we were talking about sort of later in the broadcast yesterday, it's time for the Jets to sell him again on the vision to getting back to contention for this team, or at least playoff form for this team?
Yeah, I think that's the unknown, right, guys? Like, I think we'd all agree that Vigo Bjork is a great draft pick. I don't necessarily know that that's going to change Connor Hellebuck's opinion about his future with the Jets? Because like Dave mentioned, most likely, and we'll talk to Murat about this because Murat wrote about this, but most likely Viggo Bjork's going to play for Djurgården, and I'm probably mispronouncing that.
That's where he's under contract to. So
right.
We know that if he's going to play.
He's not playing in the AHL, Drew.
What's that?
He's not playing in the AHL.
No.
So
exactly. It's either NHL or Sweden. Basically.
Or Sweden, right? So most likely he is going to play in Sweden, but like Dave said, and I want to ask Murat about this. Like, is there a chance that, this is a player who plays for the Jets as early as the 26-27 season, right? Like, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, how many people thought Porter Martone was going to have the impact that he had for the Philadelphia Flyers, right? Like, I'm sure the Flyers did, but we've seen, like, whether it's Michael Miza or, before that, Macklin Celebrini, guys come in at 18 years old and have an impact. Matthew Schaefer. So, we'll see. But I think to your point, Drew, like, in the next, few weeks, depending on what moves Chevy makes, whether that's via trade or free agency, could that be enough to change Connor Hellebuck's opinion? I'm of the belief that the Jets are going to trade Hellebuck, and I still am. My question would be, like, what has changed in the last few days, right? Like, so they haven't been able to make a trade, but if we're being honest here, I think that the Jets want a center. Forget the second line center part of it. They want a center coming back. That's what I believe that the Jets want.
But does that change now that you have Bjork, though? Do you still need another center coming back in return, given that you have Viggo Bjork now in your system, right? Given what Kevin Cheveldayoff said about Braden Yager, when he met with the media before the draft started yesterday? Does the Winnipeg Jets thinking change? Maybe. I mean, you look at the Jets roster, and I agree that there are still additional moves that seem like they have to come. There seems to be too many players up front for too few spots, given everyone's waiver eligibility status that you've spoken about, Dave, with regard to a lot of the young guys who are no longer waiver eligible. When they were waiver eligible, the Jets had that option in their back pocket. Now you look at it, once you get Perfetti signed, assuming you get Perfetti signed, there's a lot of forwards, and there's only 12 forward spots that you can really fill on a night in, night out basis. I mean, it does seem like there's that there have to be additional moves yet to come vis-a-vis the Winnipeg Jets and their roster for next season. We welcome to the program our good friend Murat Atesh, joining us to talk about the Winnipeg Jets, to talk about last night's draft. Murat, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. How are things in your world? Your dad joke yesterday on social media, by the way, A+. I was like giving it a round of applause.
Absolutely.
You're a new dad, but you've really managed to grab onto the most important parts, which are the bad jokes.
I appreciate that so much. As a new dad and an infrequent Twitter pun maker, I was a little nervous to put that out there. But yeah, more like Yarmo is cooking a line in. Am I right, fellas?
Yeah.
Am I right?
You're right, my man. I got a 5-minute spot for you at Rumors when you come back.
Appreciate it. Hey, I'm home, and also, you know what? I'm just coming to you guys and I want to brag about something, if this is all right.
Please.
But the successful handoff of a sleeping baby from me, still asleep, onto Haley, and just enough time to join you guys. Maggie is still asleep. Everything is going well. We're having a wonderful morning over here.
Love to hear that. That is one of the most difficult handoffs you can do. Never mind Kalaros to Oliveira. It's sleeping baby from dad to mom is one of the key handoffs you can do. We obviously spent the last, 30 minutes tonight, 3.5 hours last night on the first round draft show talking about Viggo Bjork, talking about the Jets. I mean, for a team that needed good news, the draft usually gives good news to most franchises, but there really does seem to be a high level of excitement around the Jets selection of Viggo Bjork. I was opining, and I know that's shocking news to you, Murat, but that the Jets haven't really had a 200-foot center who is potentially, who can excel at both ends of the ice, maybe since Brian Little. and even Brian Little was probably underrated in his abilities at both ends, and that seems to be what Bjork brings to the table on a regular basis.
It's nice always to have some Brian Little appreciation, because I do think he was underappreciated, appreciated for a while, but towards the end of his career, people were like complaining about that 50 to 60 point range. And my goodness, would the Jets appreciate that with somebody who works as hard as Brian Little does. So I like that idea, what you're saying about the 200-foot center that Viggo Bjork is and can be in the NHL. I put that in my analysis of the piece as well. Like most Winnipeg Jets centers, like the archetype is primarily offensive, like Mark Scheifele, or primarily defensive, like Adam Lowry. And here you have a player in Bjork who's been playing against men in the Swedish Hockey League and at the World Championships. And he is shifty, he's creative, he has offensive ability, he reads the play really well, he gets into open ice, he takes the puck to the net. And he impressed a lot of people, more than a lot of top prospects did, even at the Worlds and at the World Juniors. But he's also dialed in on the defensive side of things. And to hear Anton Frondell via Scott Wheeler of The Athletic share, like, he's the youngest guy on our team, and this is talking about Djurgården in Sweden, but he plays like the oldest. He's obsessed with his nutrition. He's obsessed with this. He's obsessed with that. Like, this is the type of person and player and driven prospect that you really do want for the Winnipeg Jets.
Rod, you mentioned your piece in The Athletic, and another thing that you mentioned in your piece is that Viggo's going to return to, and I apologize. I apologize to our friend Alex Kleiman, who's Swedish. Djurgårdens, am I pronouncing that right?
I mean, I couldn't be the one that corrected you. I asked somebody yesterday from Stockholm who had spent time there, and the garden sounded more like Gordon to me. Okay. But really, like, who am I to be assuming I know what I'm saying here?
Okay, so we'll go with Djurgårdens in the Swedish league. As I mentioned, you said that in the article that he's going to return there for a year. But is I'm going to ask you point blank. What are the chances that Viggo Bjork is a player for the Winnipeg Jets next year, 26-27? Is there any chance? Is there a remote chance? Like, because that's what I'm very curious about.
I can't tell you that I know, right? But in Winnipeg Jets precedent, that type of leap is so rare, and he's got a good situation in your garden. And
it sounds way better when you say it, by the way.
I think he has one more year left on a deal there as well. So without knowing how any of this can go, or just what a spectacular situation might unfold or something to that effect, I really think of him as a, like, let's see for that year to elapse, and then maybe we're saying, well, hey, he's only 19 and he's made the Winnipeg Jets. What a stunning, fast ascension to the NHL. I just think it would be, even though he's played against men, even though the SHL is a good league, I think it would be putting so much on his shoulders to try to figure out a way to make him a Winnipeg Jets center this year. But hey, the draft is still underway. The first round just happened yesterday. If folks want to dream, it's a good time to dream.
Murat, if you look at the Winnipeg Jets regular roster for next season, hasn't changed, and we thought it might have, because we were wondering if there was going to be a Connor Hellebuyck deal. You reported, obviously, that they had something cooking with the Sabres, didn't want to flip that 8th overall pick. From your perspective, are you surprised? And now a lot of the language we're hearing leading up to this draft was the offers the Jets were getting were not sufficient. When we talked to Kevin Cheveldayoff, he basically, without really getting into it, said, I'm still listening, but nothing has tickled my fancy. From your perspective, is this we heard from Dreger last night. Do you think the Jets are going to try and circle back and try and convince Connor Hellebuyck, hey, maybe we can make this work? Or do you think that there's still a likelihood he is not wearing a Jets uniform next season? Well,
yeah, I saw the TSN Insider Trading and Darren Dreger, who's clearly, been connected to this. And the idea of circling back to Connor Hellebuyck and trying to say, hey, we've made these other additions, and those additions are, TBD right now. We don't know if they will or can happen for the Winnipeg Jets. But if they can go back to him and say, look, with you playing well, with the guys that we've added, with Adam Lowry at health instead of, surgery in the off season like he had last year, we're going to do a lot better out there. I like it as a plan for the Winnipeg Jets because they're a win now team, as much as I think that they're far away from that. And there's a lot of folks that are going to say, hey, it's time to retool. It's time to retool. I don't think that's the case. I think that they're really all in on this. So what can they do now? And with the first round over, a lot of those assets, like the number 4 from Buffalo, a lot of, you can't get into the top 10 anymore at this year's draft. It's not an instant thing. Anything that you do that involves a first round pick is for next year. That might change the asset proposition for Winnipeg. The other thing, and I've said this a bunch of times, is the radio silence on this from Hellebuck, from Hellebuck's agent, from everyone involved in an official capacity. Mm-hmm. It does them favors, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Nobody has said anything they can't walk back. Hellebuck told us, right? Like, Dave, you were the other guys there as well. He was frustrated. You could feel it in the room, all that sort of stuff. But let's say they do pitch him, and he's like, well, you know what? I do see it here. You did add such and such a player, and he comes back, and he's here in September. It would be so easy for the Winnipeg Jets and Connor Hellebuck to say, I was frustrated. The year was awful, and let's go out there and be better. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that was plan A. I really think they were open to getting their doors blown in by a great offer, but that didn't come. And so here they are trying to figure out plan B.
Murat Atesh of The Athletic is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. The show, of course, presented by our title sponsor, our friends at Play Now. Murat, you talk about the Jets, roster for next year. We talk about it, and you look at the number of forwards that they currently have on their roster, and I'll throw in Cole Perfetti, even though he's RFA at this stage. It seems like there's too many forwards for the number of jobs that are going to be available, especially when you consider that players who were waiver eligible are no longer waiver eligible, some of the younger prospects. How does that logjam resolve itself? Is that where we're supposed to be sort of focusing our attentions to see if that, if some of those veterans get moved out in exchange for the young blood? How does the glut of forwards resolve itself for the Winnipeg Jets?
So I'm trying to assess that glut, and I see 12 forwards under contract for next year, and then Perfetti would be 13.
Zhilkin as well as waiver.
That's on puck.
Well,
Zhilkin. That's one who I sometimes overlook, and for me, whether it's him, whether it's Nikita Chibrikov, whether it's whomever, I don't like. Maybe the Jets treat this like a glut. I assume that Winnipeg approaches camp with 13 or 14 or 15 viable NHL forwards and lets the chips fall where they may. It's really normal, traditional around here for us to see, okay, well, this guy got hurt. Now there's an opportunity for somebody. I mean, that's how Chibrikov became a second-line winger to start last year, and Brad Lambert got some opportunity as well. So I don't think that there's too much urgency to proactively clear that. Sometimes people suggest, well, why wouldn't they move on from a Nino Niederreiter or a Vladislav Nemesnikov or something to that effect? But I still see them as viable NHL players, as disappointing as last year was. Not top 6 NHL players, and sometimes they get miscast. I think it's sort of a let the chips fall where they may situation for the Jets with their forward group.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that, Murat. And Drew mentioned Cole Perfetti, and it's been a little bit quiet when it comes to Cole Perfetti. I don't know if you would agree with that, but at least in my opinion, it's been a little bit quiet. Like, what's your sense of the situation? Like, is this a contract that's going to be signed later in the summer? Is this a contract that's going to be signed in September? Has anything changed for you? Like, do you see it being a 3 or 4 year deal, a 5-year deal? Like, where are you? I want to get inside Murat's head right now when it comes to Cole Perfetti.
I think it's normal. I would say that. Well, maybe not in Murat's head, but it's normal that a deal hasn't been signed as of yet, right? Like, it's so typical for a Winnipeg Jets restricted free agent to not sign until August or September or later into July. That is the normal cause of business. It makes sense too, right? I mean, Connor Hellebuck and that situation is probably occupying Jets management. I know that they signed Roseanne, but that was a more straightforward deal for a guy who's really barely played in the NHL to this point in his career. So I think all systems go on that in that capacity. I think everybody's talking and communicating and all those sorts of things. I know that I've seen it reported they're not close on numbers or something to that effect, but I just think that that's not the chapter of the offseason that we're in. For me, like I see term on the deal, but like what I might call medium term, like 4, 5, or 6 years.
Yeah.
If you're the Jets, you don't really want, 2 years is the absolute no-go because that would make him a free agent. 1 year, okay, you're kicking the can down the road, and maybe he's a lot more expensive next year if he stays healthy and plays more like that 50 to 60 point player that he was a year ago. So that I don't know. But also, like if you're Cole Perfetti and you just had the year that you did and your point totals were in the 30s, like I'm not sure that there's tremendous incentive that you're going to say, hey, that's what price I can get now is my end point. Let's go 8 years. Like I don't know that makes sense from his perspective. So I'm guessing, 4, 5, or 6 years, and I think it gets done. I don't think that there's any. I don't think there's going to be any emergency here. If he files for arbitration, don't sweat it. I think they'll still work on a deal, and he'll be back in Winnipeg next year.
You mentioned Isak Roseanne in your last answer, so we may as well keep the Swedish theme going. But from your perspective, I mean, he's a guy who did something which not a lot of Jets prospects did at the AHL level, which is score goals. 27 and 38, I think, for Rochester last year. Had 3 goals in the 21 games for the Winnipeg Jets. Is he a player that it's realistic to say, like, here is your the opportunity has never been bigger for him next year to seize a role in a scoring, something the Jets need, scoring in some capacity, whether it's on the second line or third line for the Jets?
It's time, right? And the thing about Roseanne is people talk about him as a little bit of a quad A prospect sometimes. Like the worst case scenario for him is he has all this skill and he has all this scoring ability, and he really does, like you said, and you're all over the AHL. The point totals he put up relative to his age at 19, 20 years old, like 21, this guy has produced in a way that most people who produce at that level in the AHL go on to top 6 forward careers if they do it by a certain age. And that is exciting if you're the Winnipeg Jets. The problem is he hasn't been able to translate that. And for me, like talking to all these scouts in and around the draft, you hear them talk about separation and time and space. And for me, it's, well, how does he get that at the NHL level? And is he going to be able to be somebody who drives play or who creates that extra few feet of space from which he can wheel or shoot? Is he going to get into open spaces? Is he going to work off the puck hard enough to get into those situations? And I think we saw flashes of a really good player, and it's just time and his journey and his ability to keep pushing. But with the Winnipeg Jets roster as it is, and they're so fond of, okay, Mark Scheifele, we're going to load up that line 1. Adam Lowry's probably going to get a checking line 2, or whatever you want to call it the third line.
Just call it the checking line, and we don't need to number it.
Yeah. There's always been this sort of secondary scoring line in Winnipeg, and that should be where he finds his home, if not right away eventually, if he's going to have an NHL career.
Murat, you answered my question about the forwards. I think we can all agree that there's not a glut of defensemen on this roster right now. I mean, you have, and to be perfectly frank, I don't know that the defense is getting talked about enough because of really how thin it is and how many question marks exist on the back end for the Jets. You have Sal Monson, who is injured to start the year, had surgery. You have a Neil Pionk you're hoping for a big bounce back from. You still have Morrissey. You got Sandberg. You have a Dylan DeMello, who is certainly on the downside of his career. Is the defense for the Winnipeg Jets a bigger concern that's not getting enough focus and attention to this point in the offseason?
I think it is a concern for sure. You have 2 pillars on it, and that's Josh Morrissey, who even though he didn't finish in the top 10 of Norris Trophy votes, had another great season for Winnipeg. You have Dylan Sandberg, who, when he came back from injury, I didn't think he was at his best. I think there was some up and down, but he's a guy that can anchor a second pair and really have success there. And it's just like a stopper as a defensive guy who's going to kill a play, take care of business, then get the puck going. Like, he's a unique player on the Winnipeg Jets in that regard. And then from there, you might imagine Sal Monson becomes a pillar, but he's not that yet. He's hurt. And I think Cheveldayoff said he has a checkup coming up. Seems like all systems go, but he could miss parts of camp depending on that. So that's an issue. And for me, it is an issue Winnipeg's aware of. You know, from time to time in terms of trade discussions, I understand that they're curious about looking for ways to upgrade their defense. Yeah, and let's talk about the other guys. For me, Dylan DeMello 2 years ago had a really big step back. I expected maybe a little bit better of a bounce back from him this year. I don't think that I saw it there. He and Morrissey still work, but if you could upgrade anybody and have a really big impact on the Jets' blue line, that's the spot you do it.
If he's your third pairing right side defenseman, I don't think anybody's particularly concerned. I mean, you're fine with that as a third pairing right side defenseman, but right now I don't know that he's not slotted to be playing next to Josh Morrissey to start the season in October with Sal Monson and his injury and his youth and everything else along those lines. It just seems they're very thin to me on the back end. They don't have what I would describe as a surefire third pairing left side defenseman to start. I just see so many question marks for a team that was not very good defensively last year, both forward wise and defenseman wise, that to me it still screams out as an area of weakness as we sit here on the 27th of June.
Yeah, I would add some team elements to it. Like as long as Morrissey and DeMello win their minutes, that's not a catastrophe, even if you think that there should be better options than DeMello to play top pairing right side, pardon me. But what happened last year with such a slow team with no secondary scoring whatsoever was that Winnipeg didn't cover defense transition. They didn't play transition defense. They got burnt up the ice. And when you're a step behind in the defensive zone, you don't get into position. And there's a situation where that as a team, they get beat more often, I think, in the defensive zone because they were slow in other areas. Morrissey and DeMello got almost universally played behind Scheifele's line because Winnipeg needed offense. So Morrissey with Scheifele, that's something you can do. Well, that might have helped DeMello's plus minus in the end look better than it otherwise would have in a different type of role. It also highlights why Dylan Samberg and Neil Pionk had no points to speak of, because if you're not outletting the puck to Nikolai Ehlers and then Cole Perfetti and Vladislav Nemestikov are scoring like 2 years ago, but instead it's just a whole host of rotating characters who are a bit too slow to generate anything, your point totals fall off. You spend more time in your own end. And the defense does need an upgrade. And I think it's a case where a rising tide would float all boats. They have just enough pieces to get by without it being a strength, is kind of my point of view on it.
Love the nautical references. As far as I'm concerned, you can never have enough nautical references, Murat.
Is that a bad thing too?
Yes, exactly. If you're okay with it, I'd like to go back to Connor Hellebuck. And, you know, we've talked about the forwards, we've talked about the defense. To me, it's something that maybe hasn't been talked about enough is if you were going to move Connor Hellebuck, what's the plan and goal for next year, right? Like, is Eric Comrie coming back as a backup? I think that would be great. And I think, you know, he's an excellent backup. I think you would agree. And, you know, Dave watches the Moose a lot more than all three of us combined, probably. Dom DiVincentis and Thomas Milic, I don't know if, you know, I think we would all agree they're not ready to you know, play 30 or 40 games in the NHL next year. So my question is, if there is a Hellebuck trade, like, and a goaltender isn't involved, how are you addressing that? Or does it have to be via free agency? Like, there are names out there, right? Jordan Binnington, Sam Montembeault, whoever. Like, what's your take on that plan for the Jets if they move on from Hellebuck? Like, who's your goalie going to be?
Yeah, who's your goalie? It would be a horrible turnaround in terms of chance you could chant if you know, isn't that a classic NHL Jets faithful chant? Was who's your goalie? Is that right? Who's your backup?
Who's your backup? Who's your backup?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, Canada Life Center crowd.
Section 311 there is going to be upset with you or whatever.
Please excuse me. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like, without Connor Hellebuck, you're in trouble in net. So you've either got to get somebody back in the trade who plays, or have a contingency plan. The free agent market isn't necessarily like stunning in any capacity, and even if it were, Winnipeg has not always had success in that regard. I think the Buffalo deal that did not happen would have involved Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. who is 27 years old and a perfectly decent average NHL netminder, big guy, and all that sort of stuff. So, like, I think if the Jets had been able to pull that particular trade off, there would have been a goalie coming back. Without him, Florida, had it been Lundell, you would have been really happy because Anton Lundell's an excellent center, but Winnipeg would have they would have had issues then because you can't hand over the net to the prospects at this point. And Eric Comrie was given the net for a month when Hellebuck's knee needed scoping, and that didn't go so well, right? Like, if you move Hellebuck and don't get a goalie, you've embraced the tank, and you're looking at a top 10 pick, top 5 pick next year.
Is that not kind of the ultimate question for this Winnipeg Jets organization, though, Murat? I mean, that's one of the things we've been talking about is trying to pick a lane and sticking to it, because the problem is if you do go that route and trade Connor Hellebuck, what does that signal to Mark Scheifele, to Kyle Connor, to Gabriel Velarde, to all of those guys who have signed because they think that you can win and they think that they can win with Connor Hellebuck in that? So if you're doing that, if you're making that move, now obviously you're going to try and sell it by saying, well, listen, we've augmented other areas of our lineup. We're going to try and have a goaltender. But I don't know. It just seems to me like that would be the first move, and just accepting, like, but then there has to be a bunch of other moves, do there not, in terms of reformatting this team in saying, okay, we've given this group basically a decade to try and get us to the promised land. They haven't done it. It's time to just change our focus. Not something that, as you, I think, mentioned in one of your earlier answers, this Jets organization seems willing to do at this point.
Yeah, it's tough because sometimes I find myself like in like the desire to explain the Jets' point of view. You know, I don't believe that they have any interest in a rebuild. I don't believe they have any interest in a retool. I think if they do trade Connor Hellebuck, they'll try to get a goalie back and still try to augment their organization and try to go back at it and sell those other guys like you just named that, hey, we're still a playoff team here. But there are arguments to be made that it's time for them to move on from that core. And if for some reason they must trade Hellebuck, if they're unable to persuade him that, hey, things are going to be okay here, show up in September, then, like, I think a lot of people assume that Connor, Scheifele, et cetera, are in tough to stick around there, or that would change how they feel. If that's true as well, I mean, the sale prices that you've seen around the NHL indicate that, like, my goodness, the Jets might be able to embrace a full-fledged rebuild, get as many first-round picks in the next few drafts as possible. I don't think there's any appetite for it at all. I think that as many rebuilds fail as have success, and I think that we're going to get to a point, whether the Jets choose it this year or it's just they've ridden out their core for the next couple, where it's not really their choice anymore unless they've done something incredible as a management team.
Last one for you, Murat. There was some talk earlier this offseason about potentially Shane Doan coming into the organization, and then that talk is pretty much fizzled. Hasn't been much follow-up to that, anything really emanating from that. What's your your thought about sort of the front office for the Jets being augmented? I know you wrote earlier in the summer about how insular and small in terms of numbers the Jets front office is in comparison to some of the other teams around this league. You know, do you think that Shane Doan is still a viable candidate to join the Winnipeg Jets organization? And generally, do you think that's an area the Winnipeg Jets should be looking to add some bodies, regarding?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's great that they were speaking to Shane Doan, because it does indicate a desire to grow and add. And whether that's in player development, which has been his purview in other organizations, whether there's a path to an assistant GM role that maybe helps him become a GM one day, whether here or anywhere else. Like, I think that he is somebody that a lot of people in the NHL appreciate, and it speaks well of Winnipeg. Not only did they speak to him, but that he
visited,
in person. And I don't know that we know what his future is at this stage. I think it's still possible, and I really don't know what's going to happen there. I know his wife, at least, maybe him, are involved in bringing Arizona back to the NHL sorts of focuses as well. I'm not sure what his involvement is. I know that other teams have been interested in him from a development point of view, but I like that Winnipeg was going shopping and had a serious conversation there. We'll see what happens. And small is a strength. Small is, in a small group.
I've been saying that for my entire life.
It's easier to generate consensus in a small group. It's easier to make sure everybody has spoken to everybody in a small group. If you have great people, you can be more lean and efficient in a small group. But it also is an insular. You do risk becoming insular. And Winnipeg's management team has been essentially the same since inception, has it not? The strengths that are strengths they continue to exist. I think Winnipeg has reaped the rewards of Cheveldayoff and Simmons and their ability to grind people on contracts and in trades. But the weaknesses are also weaknesses. Blind spots that exist are blind spots. The developmental issues that have existed continue to be development issues in terms of Winnipeg Jets player development. And so it's an analytics, like Matt Prefontaine, who's one of the best guys you'll talk to, is the video coach and the analytics guru. And you can't split the spend on that, the personnel spend on that is just not what the leaders in the NHL do. So there are ways to grow. I'm glad that they tried or are still trying, perhaps, with respect to Doan. But it's I think being lean, mean, and all the good and bad things that come with that are going to be a Winnipeg Jets staple. That's the footprint.
Murat Atesh of The Athletic, our very good friend. Now, here is where you really level up in your daddedness. Go do the handoff again. Get Maggie back from Haley and see if she's still sleeping throughout. That's really when you'll be a top number 1 draft pick at that point in time.
Wow, chaining tricks together. We're 5 or 6 months into this. Wow. Okay. Wish me luck. I'll give you an update next time.
When Maggie can't sleep, Drew, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, the days are long, the years are short. Remember that. Enjoy it. Embrace it. Murat Atesh of The Athletic will get again together real soon. Thank you, Murat.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Murat.
They're a good friend of ours, Murat Atesh, joining us this morning here on the Illegal Curve.
He's an excellent writer, and he's an even better dad.
There you go. As he given him the vote of approval. We'll take a commercial break, a commercial free for hour number 1. I have to figure out why my laptop isn't charging, so I'm going to go do that.
I'm having that issue too. It's the cord though. My cord is. I don't have the original cord.
I do. I'm getting nervous. I don't know if I'm going to have enough battery power to make it through the next 57 plus minutes or thereabouts. So I'm going to go fiddle with that. You all watch these commercials. Smash the like button.
Fiddlesticks, Drew. Fiddlesticks.
Fiddlesticks. Plenty more of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show presented by Play Now coming right up.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. I was able to plug in the laptop successfully, so go me. Apparently, all you'd have to do is really secure it in there, to get that powered, to get that juice back to the computer. So that's one less thing I have to worry about over the next little while. So many of you joining us this morning here on the program. We appreciate you. We appreciate your support. If you haven't already done so, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on, and get notified every time we go live here on the Illegal Curve channel. We're going to do it again on Saturday morning like we are this Saturday morning. Plus, we have so much content. Next week's going to be very heavy content week with all the prospects coming to town for Dev Camp. Dave M is just going to have him be parked at Hockey for All Center. He's selling his condo. He's selling his house. He's selling the PJ. He's just hanging out at Hockey for All Center next week, getting all sorts of content about the youngins that are heading to town to be part of Dev Camp next week.
So make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, folks. That way you'll get all the videos straight from Dev Camp, as you don't have to wait. We do it. We do the interview. We lost Ezzy, but we do the interview.
Yeah.
And then we get it up on our YouTube channel.
Exactly. As he's going to go deal with something else. Looks like everybody's gotten some technical difficulties.
Actually, Drew, you'd be rather proud of me. I'm even wired in today.
Wow. Why?
Well, because I realized, I've got one of these boosters, but then you can actually wire into the booster. So
you just discovered that?
No. It's not that I just discovered it. I just finally got the cord out and actually plugged it in.
Ethernet cables are hard to come by nowadays. It's true.
They are
very rare.
Well, to be honest with you, actually, I used to have a very long one, but because I used to run all the way down to the internet to the modem. But anyways, whatever.
Anyways, okay. Congratulations. I'm very proud of you. Is what I'm basically saying.
I'm very proud of myself.
Good. Round 2 of the NHL draft is now underway. Of course, the Winnipeg Jets are not expected to draft in the second round, but if that is to change, we will of course bring you that news momentarily. Right now the draft is underway. We are not expecting the Jets to draft until the third round. Looks like Ezzy is now on your phone is what's happening. You've had your technical issues come to pass. Is that what happened?
Well, I got to be honest. I apologize, guys, and I apologize to everybody listening. It's very frustrating because I spent all this time trying to get everything set up on my computer, and I don't want to be that guy that blames my computer, but I have all different types of problems charging this computer and with the microphone and everything like that. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to go old school off the phone.
Okay, fair enough. That's something.
You're coming in great, Big Daddy. You're coming in great.
We're going to start a fund where we can try and see if we can scrape together some shekels to get Ezzy a new battery, apparently, or something along those lines. But that's okay, Ezzy. You still sound great, so that's the important part. As we sit here for hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, I go back to what there was an insider trading or whatever they're calling it on TSN last night, where they talked about Connor Hellebuyck, and Dreger was basically saying that there was an attempt to make a trade with Hellebuyck. There was not an agreement reached, which of course we already know at this point in time. The bolster their lineup argument is something we talked about last night on the draft show, where we were saying that from the Jets' perspective, it's now time, if you're not trading Hellebuyck, and I don't know, I'm a little bit of the belief that if it didn't happen yesterday, I think the odds of it happening are diminishing. So now you have to go to Connor and you have to say, this is the vision. Sell him on the vision again. You sold him successfully on the vision a number of years ago when he signed the contract extension. He's justified in asking what the vision is, especially after last year. I don't think that his demands for a winning roster are out to lunch or out of touch or are unreasonable. You now have to go back to him and you have to say, Connor, this is how we're going to come back to being a playoff team. If you can say contender, whatever it might be, you have to sell him. Now that's, I think, Kevin Cheveldayoff's job probably over the next few days to get Connor Hellebuyck sort of back locked in if a trade isn't going to happen, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, as I said, I find it fascinating because, I mean, his biggest point Drew, was the fact that, we can't win trotting this out again. I mean, we talked about the defense last year and all the tip shots and all the screenshots and everything. Look, Connor Hellebuyck wasn't as good, but he still had 26 goals saved above expected last year. Eric Comrie still had plus, I think it was 2.2 goals saved above expected, right? So, I mean, while they definitely had down years from, save percentage, goals against, I mean, if you look at the numbers, they were facing an inordinate amount of difficult shots that they didn't face previously. And that's a problem for the Winnipeg Jets. So if you're, your point, Drew, about the Jets defense being the biggest issue, what's changed? What's changed with this Jets defensive group? If anything, the one sort of bright spot with Elias Salamonson is potentially, I mean, I asked Kevin Cheveldayoff about it yesterday during our morning media availability with him, and he said that he's on pace and he's progressing well. But, as far as we know, that still doesn't put him into the lineup until September, October. So I think that's a bit of a problem for the Jets because, look, I still have time for a guy like Isaac Phillips as a possible solid 6 on the left side. And I think that, he's one that doesn't get a lot of talk here in this market, but he is a guy who, again, like I said, if you would have asked me this when he first came over from the Chicago organization, I would have said no chance, but I think he's steadied into that position. Also, a guy who's very familiar playing with Elias Salamonson for what
you've
it's
seen
worth.
Phillips more than anybody in the city, maybe minus the Jet staff. What is it about Phillips that leads you to believe that he can play, in that depth role at the NHL level, be a third pairing guy at the NHL level?
Well, I mean, first of all, what did I just say?
Maybe what does he bring to the table that jumps out to you the most is sort of maybe a better way of asking that question.
Yeah, I mean, he's not small, 6'3", he's over 200 pounds, can clear the front of the net. He can skate pretty well. He's a pretty fast guy, actually, and so he can get into the play. And I just think he's defensively responsible. So again, like I said, is it an ideal situation? Again, sometimes these situations present themselves as it's the big O word, right? That opportunity. If you give a guy like Isaac Phillips an opportunity to play at the NHL, maybe he seizes it. Look, he's played. It's not like, again, we're not talking about a guy who's, got a handful of games. He's played almost 60 games in the NHL, most of them for Chicago, obviously got a few games with the Winnipeg Jets, 3 in total. But again, I'm just saying, if you're trying to problem solve, I'm not saying that, for the record, and just to be clear, I'm not connecting Isaac Phillips with potentially convincing Connor Hellebuyck things are going to be different. But I'm just saying that you're going to have a big guy who can clear the front of the net and can skate pretty well. And I think and he's defensively responsible for the most part. I just think that he's a guy that doesn't get enough talk about, but he could be a guy who could fit into that mold if you're looking for someone in that realm. But again, it doesn't really solve.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say it doesn't solve the reality of your problem, which is that Neil Pionk took a step back last year, Dylan DeMello took a step back last year, and so Dylan Sandberg took a step back last year. So right now, this Jets defense, the only thing you could really be selling them. See, Doug, I got Doug on team Isaac Phillips. The only thing you're going to be selling is, as we've mentioned, that, I mean, and Kevin Cheveldayoff talked about it yesterday in his availability, talking about the 6, I don't think he mentioned the number, but how many guys had bad seasons as he last year, whether it was because they was injured and like a Cole Perfetti, high ankle sprain, slow to start. I'm not trying to go all over the place. I'm just saying that I think that you're selling it on, trying to connect it to the original topic, Drew, which is just that, you're just saying like
everything that could have gone wrong went wrong last year. Yeah. It's not going to be the same this year. And there's an argument to be said for that. I mean, there's an argument to be said that, ideally we're going to be healthier. Some of these key members are going to be healthier. That the depth that wasn't there last year is going to have a bounce back, and as a result, the whole team is going to have a bounce back. I mean,
well, that's the only thing you could sell. That's the only vision right now, Ezzy, that you could sell, because there are no players. Like, that's what Dreger tried to kind of, fluff out there, which is like, oh, well, you're going to sell them because you're going to acquire a defenseman and you're going to acquire a forward. Okay. And I'm not saying the Jets won't. I'm not saying the Jets might not trade assets to try and do that so they get better for next year. But as of right now, that's the only vision that you can sell, because, as you said, Drew, they haven't made any changes.
Go ahead, Ezzy.
Yeah, well, you keep muting my mic for some reason, Drew.
I'm muting your mic because we're getting feedback, so I'm going to unmute it when you're ready to go.
Okay, well, I can't do anything about that.
I know. I'm going to work on that for you.
My house is quiet, so nobody's here, so I'm not sure why there's feedback. But as the plane goes overhead me, I'm very, I'm very close to the James Armstrong Richardson International Airport here
Ginsburg. It's also called the Ginsburg
Lodge,
Airport,
where I live here in Winnipeg. But this notion of what the Jets need to do to improve, and if that can convince Connor Hellebuyck to stay, I mean, we have no idea. Like, there has to be, like, we just talked to Murat about Vigo Bjork and whether he could step into the NHL next year. And Murat basically, I'm paraphrasing, but he's saying that's not likely, that Vigo Bjork is going to step into the NHL. Most likely, he's going to play a full year in the Swedish league. Could he play, some games with the Jets, in the second half of the season or towards the end of the season? Possibly. Like Dave said earlier, we don't know. But I don't think anybody is necessarily banking on Vigo Bjork being your second line center. So the Jets have to go out and acquire that, right? And not only do they have to acquire a second line center, they have to boost, some of the skill that they have in their top 9 forward group, right? Like, they're still looking for replacing Nikolai Ehlers' offense guys, right? Like, you didn't do that last year, right? They thought they could do that by committee last year with guys like, Tanner Pearson and Gus Nyquist, and we know how that went, right? So the Jets still have some big holes, and I think Drew makes a good point when he talks about the defense, right? Like, Elias Salomonsson, guys, is gonna, like, let's call it what it is here. He might miss a little bit of time, but he's gonna play the majority of the season with the Jets next year. So that's a positive development in that he can play top 4 minutes on your right side. He's shown that he can play with Dylan Sandberg. He can play with Josh Morrissey. So, but the reality is, and like, I love you, Dave, I'm going to disagree with you on Isaac Phillips.
Sure.
Like, I see Isaac Phillips at best at the NHL level being like a 7 or 8 defenseman. Like, I could be wrong here, Dave. I don't see Isaac Phillips playing like a lot of games with the Jets next year. Like, I could see him, if there's some injuries, I could see Isaac Phillips playing, 5 games, 10 games, something like that. And again, if I'm wrong about that, like, I'll give you all the credit. From what I've seen of Isaac Phillips, like, I think he's an AHL defenseman. But so I still think that the Jets need, they need an infusion of talent and an upgrade. Like, I think Hayden Fleury can absolutely be your third pairing defenseman. But I think there's an argument, that he's also a kind of a 7-8 defenseman at this point in his career. So there's still a lot of work. Like, again, Vigo Mania is great. The Jets have their guy. They have their Swedish Nick Suzuki, and the future is bright for Vigo Bjork. But most likely, we're looking at the 27-28 season for Vigo Bjork.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. It would be unusual for the Jets. I mean, when was the last time a Jets player was drafted and immediately came into the NHL? I mean, Scheifele played that handful of games back in 2011, but other than that, has there been a rookie who's ever stepped in that first year? I can't really remember one.
Line.
Sorry, yes, Line would be the only one. That's right. Fair enough. Good call. I forgot about Patrick there, but otherwise, so it would be unusual, but I don't think I think it's got a better possibility than it has in the last number of years happening in this instance with regard to Vigo Bjork. I think the team is going to give him the chance, depending on what he can do.
Ehlers too, wasn't it? Wasn't Ehlers as well? I think Ehlers got drafted.
No, didn't Ehlers?
Oh, did he play one more year?
I thought he went back to Halifax for one more year. I mean, I can't remember immediately off the top of my head.
I think you're right.
But I'm pretty sure he was
right. Yeah.
He played one more.
Even though it pains me to say it, Drew's right.
No,
Yeah,
you're
don't worry.
right.
It doesn't happen very often. None of us will be too worried about it. Again, there's holes on this roster that need to be fleshed out, that need to be filled out. We know free agency is coming up.
Although you did have some
Wednesday.
addition by subtraction, Drew.
Well, I mean,
if you think about it, the team.
that,
No, but if you think about it, the team again, like I said, it was too little, too late based on the first half of the season. But this team definitely was playing better hockey once you got rid of the Luke Shen anchor. Once you got rid of Gus Nyquist as a nightly enterprise of a black hole, other than his ping pong skills. So, I mean, there were some benefits to the roster in the last half, and we saw it with that sort of late push that they had in terms of trying to make a playoff run. So, I mean, again, you could try selling that to Connor Hellebuck as well, in the sense that you could say, well, look, that's the team we think we are, not the first half team where Perfetti had the high ankle sprain, Dylan Sandberg was out, you were out, and and Adam Lowry wasn't even close to being ready. So, maybe that's part of their again, and people can say, well, it's ridiculous. I'm just saying that if you're trying to be a salesman, that's the way you're going to try and sell it to Connor Hellebuck.
And I've been saying this for a while. I think the organization truly does believe that. I think the organization believes that what happened last year, there were certainly some bad bets made. Nyquist, top of the list.
And Cheveldayoff admitted that yesterday. He did say that he did say his personnel choices were, he said, I don't remember. I don't want to quote it because I don't remember the exact language used, but he basically said that, there's the choices made did not work out.
Did not work out. So I think that they're banking on, I think a lot of their plan and a lot of, to get back to being respectable and getting back to being a playoff team is bounce back from internal options. I don't think that it's all about a massive overhaul, whether or not that's the right bet to make. Obviously, time will tell on that front, but I do believe that is sort of where they are thinking. To their advantage is, I would say that the Central Division is probably not, leaps and bounds better than it was last year. Colorado, sort of got lost in it. They traded out Nichushkin, so that's not going to be
the Jet killer.
Yeah, so Nichushkin's gone from Colorado. Peterka's gone from Utah. Chicago's still a tire fire. Kairu's gone from St. Louis. Yes, you bring in McMichael in exchange. It's not like the teams around the Jets in their division. Robertson may or may not be in Dallas. Who knows on that front? It's not like the teams in and around the Jets are making these large leaps forward so far this offseason. Now, there's still a lot of offseason to come. Like I said, free agency, albeit a weak free agency class, is coming on Wednesday. McTavish going to St. Louis as well. Thank you, Rowdy, the Dutch Jets fan. I see him in the chat mentioning McTavish.
It's still the best division in hockey, though. Let's not get it twisted here.
It's still the best division in hockey, yes, but I don't think that the teams around – I've seen at best from the teams in the division are lateral moves. I don't think you can point to any of the teams in the division and say – they have gotten a lot better so far this offseason. That they, the teams that have traded.
That includes the Jets.
Yes. Fine.
But he's saying they haven't outpaced the Jets because they like the Jets haven't been doing much.
Yeah, but I agree with Drew that in like a lot of these moves are lateral. The Jets haven't done anything.
Well, I think the Jets are banking on that improvement coming just from a return to health, plus maybe some other things that they might end up doing over the course of this offseason. But I think that, if the Jets are saying, look, if Scheifele and Connor can give us 90 to 95% of what they did last year, and then Perfetti goes back to getting full health and Sandberg full health and Lowry full health, well, we're right back into the mix of things. Again, I'm not saying that this is correct or incorrect. I think that this is, to some degree, the internal logic being bandied about within the brain trust of the Winnipeg Jets organization.
Got to give, sorry, Ezzy, but got to give, I think it's boring Sean Monahan credit. Ville Heinola played 10 games after getting drafted by the Jets, right? So.
Yeah, okay. And yes.
Well,
the first year after he was drafted, Ville Heinola played 10 games for the Jets.
Yeah, because remember he was drafted in 2019, and then isn't that when he scored his one NHL goal?
And Dave, he's only played 10 NHL games since then.
Although interestingly, I saw there was an article in The Athletic that the Rangers So a little bit of full circle, considering that the Jets got used the
Played
pick
8
from
games that year.
from the Rangers to draft Ville Heinola. But there's some talk that the Rangers may be interested in bringing Ville Heinola in on a 1-year deal or 2-year deal. So Ville may be back in the NHL with the New York Rangers, which, like I said, would be a little full circle, given that's the pick the Jets had.
If you want to talk about that for a second, like, I still think Heinola can be an NHL defenseman. Like, he just won gold with Finland at the World Hockey Championship, right? Like, I'm not saying that means that he's going to, put up 50 points in the NHL next season, but certainly the skill set is still there, and he's still young enough at 24 years old or whatever, to make a career, to have a good NHL career. Maybe he goes back and plays in Finland, Dave, or in Europe, somewhere in Europe. I'm not sure, but to your point, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he signs with another NHL team. And I've been saying all along, like, why I think why can't he be the third pairing left side defenseman for the Jets? Right? Like, that's what I keep going back to, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen, obviously.
That ship has thoroughly sailed,
yes.
I would argue.
Yes.
I mean, and I expect he will sign an NHL contract, because I think all sorts of teams will take a 1-year, basically no-cost flyer on a guy who once had a pedigree of a first-round pick, just to see if they can find some money, in the couch cushions. I mean, there's no risk involved in that kind of deal, because what's the downside? So you pay him $900,000 or whatever the amount of money is. If he gets a one-way deal, maybe even if it's a two-way deal, he gets a very reasonable amount of money from a team, and they say, go show us what you can do, and if you can't do it, it didn't really cost us anything. It's not like it's costing us a player; it's only costing us money at that point.
Right. Anyways, not to make this a Ville Heinola segment. I just thought it was notable. That was simply it.
Yeah, and I think that's a very fair point for you to make. We'll take another commercial break. The second day of the draft is underway with round 2. The Jets are not involved in round 2 as of yet. It seems like it's going relatively well. I'm not going to keep you updated on every pick in round 2, though. So we'll let you know what happens when the Jets have some news to be made. In the meantime, we'll come back with more of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show coming right up. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, presented by Play Now. Don't go anywhere.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Bottom of hour number 2. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. The Ruck twins are both going to be members of the Pittsburgh Penguins. So we know that the Penguins took Liam Ruck that they drafted in the first round last night. They just drafted Marcus Ruck. So the twin brothers.
39th overall, right, Drew?
That's where they drafted him, I believe, last night. And then at pick 39, Marcus just went as well. So the Ruck brothers will be taking up residence. A pair of twins on the same team. Pretty cool story with the Ruck brothers in Pittsburgh.
And that's what we were hearing, right, Dave? Like when we were hearing that from the draft experts, it was that they wanted to play for the same team. So I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus Ruck was supposed to go a little bit higher. So I'm not surprised that Marcus Ruck fell, because I think a lot of teams knew that Pittsburgh wanted to have both of them.
Yeah, just a nice story, sort of a fun story in that case is all that is. It doesn't really matter from the Winnipeg Jets perspective at all, but it's a nice story that the two twin brothers will get to play together. There's a connection
to Winnipeg, though, because they're going to be playing at UND in a couple of years, so...
Sure, yes, but I'm talking about from the Jets' perspective, it doesn't really matter very much. I don't think it's something that they're going to be paying a whole heck of a lot of attention to, but we are at pick number 41 in the second round, so a long ways to go before the Winnipeg Jets draft again in the third round, barring any sort of trade. There was a small trade down I think we saw so far tonight, but so far it's been pretty standard operating procedure when it comes to the Winnipeg Jets in the second round of the draft. Actually, it's worth noting, our buddy Kelly Moore just tweeting this out. The pick that the Pittsburgh just used to draft Marcus
was the Luke Shen one.
Was the Luke Shen trade. Exactly right. So it was the Winnipeg Jets second round pick that was traded to Luke Shen, or traded to Pittsburgh for Luke Shen, that was used to draft the other Ruck brothers. So
Drew, I guess we can close the Luke Shen trade tree now.
Well, depending if the Ruck brothers get traded or not. But yes, from the Jets' perspective, we can remember the Luke Shen time period. Maybe not fondly, but it can be remembered nonetheless. So that's where things stand, as of course with the Winnipeg Jets. Day 2 of the draft, again, like I said, going sort of standard without much excitement thus far, as you would expect. Most of these teams just want to do their thing and get out of there, and free agency's 3 days away. We know it's not a stellar free agent class. I'm being polite when I say that. From the Jets' perspective, we know they're not big players in free agency. Last year, I guess it was Koepke was the free agent signing on day 1. Was he a day 1 signing, Koepke from Boston coming to Winnipeg? I think he was. I expect you'll see small moves by the Jets. Usually we saw last year maybe some two-way contracts handed out. Wasn't Walker Duehr maybe a two-way contract on day 1 of
I'm just checking right now.
Year? That's usually where the Winnipeg Jets are, is around the margins from free agency.
Tanner Pearson, Cole Koepke.
Yeah. Okay. So again, minor moves for the most part. We know that Nyquist was a few days later. Because Ehlers didn't sign until, was it July 4th, maybe July 5th?
Yeah, Ehlers waited a bit.
Exactly. So, for the most part, it's not a big day. It'll be, I guess you'll have the
Cale Clegg, Phil DiGiuseppe.
Yeah, again, guys who were largely Moose players last year.
Yeah, and then like Walker Duehr, Isaac Poulter, Samuel Fagemo, those guys got July 2nd deals.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, again, July 1st is not usually a day where you have to be. Dave's going to be locked and loaded, of course, doing dev camp work and at Hockey for All Center. But
I
it's not a
remember
big
last
day.
year though. I remember last year it was funny though, Ezzy, because I was the only guy I think who went to dev camp. Everybody else was at Canada Life. Like all the other media guys went to Canada Life. I was like, what are you guys doing? There's zero value in going there. You may as well get content from the kids, and then you can go. And then I still made it down in time, and the Jets had done like nothing. So,
Dave, I might join you this year. You're not going to be alone this year.
wow, I love it. I don't like it. I love it.
Yeah, let's see if that actually comes to fruition.
I feel like it's going to. I'm gonna make a Minuk guarantee that Ezra Ginsburg will spend at least one. I'm not saying he's gonna be there for all 4 days, but I'm saying he will be there for at least one day. For
any chance I have to ride with Dave M, I'm gonna jump on it.
Yeah, fair enough. Good for both of you.
Snacktoba's got it right though. Canada Day.
Funny.
Canada Day. Dave is locked and loaded. Ezzy, he's just loaded.
I saw that. That's a funny comment, Snackatoba. Good job on you. You got a thumbs up from us. There you go. Thumbs up for that very astute comment regarding Ezzy and his blood alcohol content.
It's a little bit lower than it used to be, boys. If this was 10 years ago,
you're a responsible member of society nowadays.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that, Drew.
Yeah.
One guy I wanted to throw out there. I know we're not going to follow the second round as closely for a variety of reasons. We don't know these prospects as well. The Jets don't have a second round pick.
Yeah.
Right. One guy I want to throw out there who, with my time with Hockey Manitoba, I got to know him. He's supposed to be kind of a late second rounder, early third rounder. I know Dave knows who I'm going to mention here. Brett Liskey, born in Beausejour. I'm not sure if he lives. I think he might live in Winnipeg, but he's been living in Everett because he played for the Everett Silvertips. But that's the guy to watch out for because the Jets have, pick 71, Dave?
71.
In the third round? I'm not saying that the Jets are going to necessarily draft Brett Liskey, but I'm just saying a lot of focus was on Carson Carrolls from Cypress River. But Brett Liskey's a guy that, he could be available for the Jets. So I'm just saying for the fans watching right now live, just Brett Liskey's a really good defenseman from Everett who could be an option for the Jets in the third round. Just saying.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that one, Ezzy. Thank you for that Hockey Manitoba related insight. Good job. Again, looking at the free agents, there's no one who's going to blow your socks off. But, I wonder if there's value to be had if you look a little bit deeper. I mean, a guy that I've always sort of liked and who never really gets – he's noticed but not, tremendously noticed, Mario Ferraro. I mean, out of San Jose. It seems like he's not going back there. It seems pretty evident that the San Jose Sharks are churning over their defense, especially some of the moves they made at the draft. That's a guy who I just, I think would – be wonderful for the Winnipeg Jets in playing he's not going to be playing in a top 4 role for the Winnipeg Jets, but if you can all of a sudden plug in a guy like Mario Ferraro on your back end from a Jets perspective, I think that would be something that would be a really astute signing. Now, of course, talk is cheap. Who knows if that's actually going to happen, if that's even plausible, but this is a guy who just quietly
he's a guy also that the Jets have been connected to before, have they not, Drew?
It's a guy I've always kept an eye on. Yes,
maybe it's you just talking about it, but
maybe it's just me talking about him. That's entirely possible.
Which I guess means I listen.
Yeah, that's the surprising part. Left shot defenseman, 27 years old, doesn't put up big numbers, but put up 23 points, 7 goals last year. Defensively responsible. I mean, if you want to get back to your MO of being a defensively responsible team first and foremost, I think it starts with your back end. And so if you sign a guy like that, and you'll probably have to overpay for him because that's what the Jets always have to do is they have to overpay for guys. But if you can sign a guy like him, and then you say to Connor Hellebuyck, look, this is a guy who's going to make your life easier. He's going to make the front of the net a no-go zone in the defensive zone. This is an accomplishment. This is a player that we've brought in to help you and help us. This is the kind of thing you're going to need to go. Not the big name guys. Not that there's very many big name guys on free agency day anyways this year. But
especially now that Alex Tuck has been traded and signed.
Right, exactly. He was going to be the big guy. The sign and trade happened. He goes to Washington. He improves the Capitals. A guy like Mario Ferraro, again, whether or not he'd want to come to Winnipeg, whether or not it's even a possibility, we've seen the Jets overpay for defensemen before. You know, you go back to Kulikov is I think the big defenseman that the Jets, the biggest contract, it might even be the biggest contract the Jets have ever signed on free agency day, is the Kulikov one. I'm trying to remember if there's been another UFA that they've signed that would have a longer and more money commitment than the Kulikov one.
Well, Olli Jokinen was only signed to 2 years.
Right. Jokinen was 2 years and I think $4.5 billion.
Matthew Perreault is a good, because he was signed to, he not signed to 4 years when he first signed?
No, he was signed to he was a 3-year, like $9 million contract when he first, because remember, he wasn't qualified by Anaheim. If you remember, he became a UFA because Anaheim chose not to qualify him.
Yeah.
And then the Jets signed him at a very reasonable amount of money because he was sort of one of those, he was an analytical darling that a lot of teams overlooked, and the Jets signed him, and it was a very astute signing. You know, and then they, of course, they re-signed him after that. But I think
the Jets could use a player like Matthew Perreault right now.
The Jets could use a lot of players, but I'm saying, I think a Mario Ferraro, a guy his best days aren't behind him yet. He's a good quality, strong defenseman.
He's what, 27?
27 years old. You know, he's coming off a 4-year, $3.25 million per year deal. Obviously, he's going to get a raise. That's a guy I wouldn't be, I mean, on July 1st or July 2nd, when Kevin Cheveldayoff meets with the media after free agency begins, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, not that he necessarily will say exactly about him, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets aren't at least interested in having conversations with a guy like Mario Ferraro.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I like Ferraro. Every time I've watched San Jose, I like his game. Like you say, Drew, he's kind of, in that kind of peak of his career, or at a very, middle of his career, whatever you want to say about that. But it's a player like that, right? Guys, the players like that are going to be the ones that are signed via free agency, right? Like, we don't expect the Jets to address 2C via free agency. We expect that if it does happen, we expect it to happen via trade, right? And I think, Dave made a good point. I think, Drew, you brought this up yesterday too. We were talking to Braden Yager, and this goes back to what Murat said when we had him on about, 45 minutes ago or whatever. Like, there's a lot of jobs to be won in training camp, right? The big, unknown is if Chevy's going to acquire a second line center. But, whether you're talking about Dave, obviously the first line, we know who the first line is. It's Scheifele, Connor, Velarde, or at the very least, it's going to be Scheifele, Connor, Iafallo, and then Velarde could be an option on the second line. But there's a lot of openings when it comes to the forward group, less so on defense. But whether you're talking about Yager, whether you're talking about Brad Lambert, whether you're talking about Danny Zhilkin, Nikita Chibrikov, I mean, there's a lot of players that not only do they want to win a job with the Jets next year, but those spots are open right now. Like Drew said, there's a glut of forwards. Once Cole Perfetti is signed, there's going to be 13 forwards signed, and we expect the Jets to acquire at least a couple more depth forwards. And there's been a lot of talk from the insiders about the Jets potentially going after a 4C, which doesn't necessarily mean, Dave, that Danny Zhilkin can't be that 4C or at the very least play for the Jets next year. But I think that's what you should be looking for when it comes to free agency. To Drew's point, players like Mario Ferraro, third pairing left side defensemen, fourth line guys, third line guys. And it goes back to what you said before. Like, I think the Jets can attract some free agents. Like, obviously Cole Koepke signed here, right? Like, not to mention, Pearson, Nyquist, and Taves. But certainly the big one, and again, I hate to sound like a broken record here, boys, but that's why I still think a trade, you would think, has to be a big thing that's coming for the Jets, because to me, that's the real way that you improve this roster. Like, all due respect to Mario Ferraro, he's a nice player, he's a good defenseman, he's more of a third pairing guy. The Jets have much bigger holes than that to fill on this roster.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Dave.
I mean, as he's right, that's the problem, right? You're sticking your finger trying to prevent the water from getting in the boat, but there's so many holes that you just can't do it. You don't have that many fingers or toes. So I mean, on one hand, I agree with Drew in the sense that there really is, it's not a bad thing to have the competition and to have guys fighting for spots. And look, if guys don't get into, if they don't get it, then put them on waivers. If you don't think Vlad Nemestikov is got it, then throw him on waivers. You know what I mean? I'm just saying that this notion that you can't put a guy on waivers last year, we saw that, right? Luke Schenn can't go on waivers. God forbid you don't have Luke Schenn, or not Luke Schenn, sorry, Tanner Pearson or Gus Nyquist. Yeah, of course. But I'm just saying, like, look, you put Andrei Pavlik once upon a time on waivers. He was your goaltender. You put him on waivers. So, I mean, I'm just saying that you have to be willing as an organization to make this tough, difficult decisions, mostly because if you don't, you risk losing a Johnny Kovacevic, who's signed a nice 5-year deal in New Jersey. He's a third pairing guy for the Devils, 6'3". I mean, think about it. There's a guy who wanted to be in Winnipeg,
sure,
right? So he would have set down roots. He was a good kid. And again, I'm not saying he would have fixed all that ailed the Winnipeg Jets, but I'm just saying that there was a guy who wanted to be in this market and was happy to be here for, a career. And so that's all I'm saying is that you risk losing. And I'm not saying that it's going to be the end of the world if some of these prospects get claimed. And obviously there's machinations teams do at all times to try and, avoid losing their prospects in terms of, like we saw with what they did with Heinola last year. If you think about it, right? They put Heinola on waivers at the last second, or maybe as he's not ready to be on the show. As you want to be on or no?
I'm just muting him so he can do his walk and talk or whatever.
Well, I didn't realize he was walking.
It's like when Kenny was walking through Denver and almost walked into the lamppost.
Did my camera cut out earlier? Because
for a few seconds,
cut out.
Yeah, I got a phone call, and then all of a sudden, look, boys, this is not my best day today.
No, it's not.
That's for sure. I'm having all types of technical difficulties, but
all good.
Still go.
I just wanted to make sure if you wanted us to.
Well, it said it was spam.
That makes more. That
makes.
The best,
I'm assuming it's a collection agency, Drew.
Actually, I thought it was just spam the company. Like they were like, Mr. Ginsburg, you're our number one client.
We're signing you to a large marketing contract.
Anyways,
I'm assuming Dave, just because Dave M's a good kosher boy, he's not eaten spam.
No.
Dave or Drew, have you ever eaten spam?
What do you think, Ezzy?
It's disgusting.
Probably a good chance, actually.
You think there's a good chance that I've eaten spam, Dave?
Well, in an elevated way. I'm sure like there's some fancy la-di-da way that you might have eaten spam once upon a time.
If there is, I haven't experienced it and I'm not about to. So no matter how fancy of a boy you think I might be, I can assure you that spam is not going anywhere near my palate at any point in time.
I mean, the reality is, like, in my 20s, when tough times were a little bit tough, when I was a struggling student, sometimes you need to dip into the imitation lunch meat.
You ate spam?
I wanted to try it. I was just curious. Like, I'm a curious guy, as you guys know, and
he's curious by nature.
Yeah, and it's disgusting.
Anyways, so sorry, before we get too derailed by as the spam phone call and spam food, all I was going to say is that I think what it comes down to is that you as an organization have to. So on one hand, it's good. It's good to have competition. It's good to have 15, 16, 17 forwards fighting for 13 jobs. I don't think that's a bad thing. But I just think that from an organizational perspective, if push comes to shove and your veterans aren't doing it, you have to make those tough decisions to not lose a player like Danny Zhilkin, who could, again, what do we talk about? Defensively responsible, fast. Like, I just see Danny Zhilkin paired up so well with Cole Koepke on that fourth line, especially now that you don't have to worry about Jonathan Taves, returning and potentially being that guy. I just look at that and I think to myself, like, there's a role for him. He can carve out that role with the Winnipeg Jets next year and create an identity for them. And also he PKs. So do you want to lose a Danny Zhilkin, who you've invested, we talked about it yesterday with the Red Wings. I mean, they invested in Sebastian Cossa for 4 or 5 years of all of that time. And then you trade him away for a pick. And now you're going to have to start all over again. So I'm just saying that I just think that it's not a bad thing that you're going to have these guys who are going to be hungry for an opportunity. Like, what was Brad Lambert's thing last year? Well, I think I'm an NHL player. Okay, well, show it, Brad.
Well, it goes back to, I mean, again, it goes back to what we were talking about with Murat is, you talk about, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Dave, that the Jets need an identity. They need an identity to their team, but if they have a fourth line that has a specific identity, speed, tenaciousness, Zhilkin and Chibrikov and Kepke or whatever, you know what you're going to get from them shift in, shift out. Iafallo is the veteran leadership there. I mean, again, Iafallo is a guy that we haven't really talked about this offseason very much. Where does he slot in? I mean, there's still, the roster is still a bit of a jumbled mix.
It's like musical chairs, right? Like there's more forwards in the system right now than there are chairs available, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, we still have Niederreiter, the Mesnikov, Iafallo are sort of those three veteran forwards that, certainly are later in their careers. I think Iafallo has the most value of those three, particularly on a trade market, but I think he also has a lot of value to the Winnipeg Jets themselves. I just don't know where guys like Nemesnikov and Niederreiter fit in with a Winnipeg Jets team for next year. Is your third line, are you going Lowry, Barron, Niederreiter? Well, maybe if Niederreiter can keep up and is, returning to health, that's going to be a heavy third line to play against. That's going to be a tough matchup for opponents. That's going to be a line that leans on you and is physically strong and physically capable. Can you get enough offense from that third line? I have questions. Well,
and that's why a guy like, I think, Isaac Rozan was signed, because Isaac Rozan, I think, we talked to Murat about him, and, I think he's kind of in between, he's a top 9 guy, Dave, but he's kind of in between a second liner and a third liner, right? So I agree with you. And that's why, again, I said this yesterday at Canada Life Center during the draft show. I think Nino Niederreiter and Vlad Nemesnikov have had great careers, and they've done a lot for the Winnipeg Jets organization. But because, whether you're talking about, Dave just talked about Danny Zhilkin, whether you're talking about a Brad Lambert, Isaac Rozan, Nikita Chibrikov, I mean, the youth is coming, guys. The youth is coming for this Jets team. It's not coming in 3 years. It's coming next year. And that's why I wouldn't be shocked if one of Nemesnikov or Niederreiter is either placed on waivers, traded. I think we talked about it yesterday. It doesn't look like the buyout is an option for either of these guys. But, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of question marks when it comes to the forward group. Like we said, there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of reasons to be excited. I'm with Dave. That's one player I do agree with you guys, Dave. Zhilkin, I think, is ready for the NHL. I don't know if he's going to, for the Jets, if he's going to provide enough offense on the fourth line. And that's why I think maybe that's why you hear that the Jets might be looking to acquire a quote unquote fourth line center, right, Dave? But that doesn't mean that he can't. Maybe he plays on the wing. Maybe he's a guy that plays a little bit fourth line center and then, whatever. But it's a good point that you're making, Drew, because there's still, again, even though they have all of these forwards, you're still missing that established top 6 center, second line center. Again, it comes back to this, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but who is your second line center next year? Braden Yager, could he be, again, can he make that leap next year?
It's asking a lot.
Possibly, but you're asking a lot for a guy who's only played 3 NHL games.
Well,
right?
And he's not even been included in our discussions really about the 14 forwards, 14 forwards when you include Perfetti and Zhilkin that the Jets have under contract. What happens if Yager is a 15th forward that the Winnipeg Jets are considering? Well, I mean, again, I think we all know that 15 forwards is not really a realistic number, especially if you're, if you're afraid of losing somebody on waivers. Now, if you're willing to lose somebody on waivers, that changes the calculus to some degree, certainly. But there's just, again, there's holes that don't have an obvious candidate to fill them on the roster, but you almost still have too many guys on the roster. So you have these 15 guys, but you actually need a 16th to fill the one role that those first 15 guys can't fill.
Right. And it becomes the age-old thing, right? Do you want to block a guy's opportunity, which is what the Jets did when they brought in Nate Schmidt and Brendan Dillon? And as a result, you lost Declan Chisholm, you lost Johnny Kovacevic. Like, that's the risk you run, is that you bring a guy in.
And it's all Hainala's development, Dave.
That's what I mean. And so on one hand, like Brendan Dillon, Nate Schmidt was a good fit too, as well. And I mean, in terms of personality, he was one of the best interviewers. But the fact is that you created roadblocks for your prospects. And these guys are aware of it. I mean, you talk to them, they understand like what happens when organizations go out and do that. And you can say, go and earn your spot. But I mean, like, can you? Because Jets have shown that they're not putting the veterans on waivers when they've been outplayed. And that's a problem. They said again, remember guys, Salamonson, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Salamonson, I mean, he elevated himself when he first got his opportunity, again, due to injury. Then he was, came back, played with the, went back down to the Moose, and then came up and he looked real good in his second showing until he got the concussion. But the fact of the matter is that, a lot of these, like, it's about an organization that's philosophy needs to change. I mean, again, you are looking at a Winnipeg Jets organization. Let's be quite honest about it. You've gone to the Western Conference Final one time. You swept the Edmonton Oilers in the bubble. Great. Again, like I said a couple shows ago, that's the best thing.
COVID year, not the bubble, but the COVID year.
Sorry, the COVID year. But that to me,
shout out to Bud Light Salty.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we have a trade to announce. It's not Jets related, but it is. It is next to the Jets in the division. Brandon Carlo has gone from the Toronto Maple Leafs to the St. Louis Blues for 2 third-round picks.
Okay. Yeah, there was some talk.
If you want to talk about bad asset management by the Toronto Maple Leafs, there's a prime example of it. Brandon Carlo was acquired from the Bruins in exchange for a first-round pick plus a prospect, if I recall correctly, from Toronto a couple of years ago, and now he's been dealt to St. Louis for 2 third-round picks. Mm-hmm. So the St. Louis Blues are shoring up their back end by acquiring Brandon Carlo from the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Sorry, just as an aside, like the Alex Steen era has officially begun in St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
No,
I'm not really sure what St. Louis is doing.
I think what's his name's still in charge.
Pardon me?
I think Doug Armstrong. This is his last draft. I think Doug Armstrong's last draft is this one.
Oh, I thought Steen was taking over officially as GM this year. I mean,
he takes over. I think. I mean, again, I could be wrong, Ezzy. I don't know, but I thought Doug Armstrong would be finishing his duties for this year, and then Steen will take over. For the 26-27 season. I could be wrong.
So Armstrong and Steen. Steen's, I guess we're calling him the assistant GM now.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what St. Louis the Jordan Kyrou, St. Louis isn't a very good team right now. Let's be honest here. They missed the playoffs. I just they're trading for futures, but they're also acquiring guys like Brandon Carlo. I don't know. Just to Drew's point, a lot of these moves, all due respect to a guy like Brandon Carlo, he doesn't really move the needle much for me. He's kind of a number 4, number 5 defenseman at this point in his career. Just an observation that St. Louis has been very active, but I don't necessarily know that they've gotten any better.
Well, lateral moves is what we've talked about, for a lot of the Central Division teams. I mean, I think the acquisition price is relatively minimal, 2 third-round picks. So I think it's worth. I don't mind it in terms of the dart throw, but in terms of the grand scheme of your plans, I think that's a valid point, Ezzy, that it's sort of unclear if you're almost. You got feet in both lanes, and I don't know if that ever works out particularly well. I mean, you can say that about the Jets, of course, as well. But that's a separate issue entirely. Go ahead, Dave. You were going to say something as well.
No, I had nothing. I was typing something in the chat.
Oh, okay. Well, at least you were worried about the chat, as well. Okay. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go take our final commercial break? We'll come back with overtime for about 10 or so minutes. The Jets are going to be a while. At least you guys can keep going. I have to bail out in about 10 minutes. If you guys want to keep going, I'll defer to you guys on that front. But
I'll discuss. I might call him maybe I'll phone him and see if I can cut off his video.
There you go. You're the spam caller. We'll take our final commercial break. We'll come back with some overtime. It's a wild and woolly edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Saturday morning, live on YouTube. Smash the like button and subscribe to the channel.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now, you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome to overtime here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk. Looks like as he's back again on his cell phone adventures is, I think, the best way to describe what's going on.
I wonder if Ezzy should go for a walk while we're doing the show.
You think he should get some steps in? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying, like, maybe we should actually like send him out he could do a walkabout in St. James.
We have a little bit of a problem now because now my cell phone is down to about 19% battery. So
perfect.
I'm going to have to charge my cell phone at some point because I think just to kind of let the audience know what we're planning on doing. I think what we're going to do is we're going to be on air until the Jets make their 3rd round pick, which is 71st overall. So that's going to be maybe another 45 minutes to an hour. We should mention, I mentioned earlier, I was hoping Brett Liskey might drop to the Jets at 71. He was taken 54th overall by the Philadelphia Flyers. So congratulations to Brett Liskey and his family. He's going to be a member of the Flyers organization.
Well, there's lots of ties between the Flyers organization and Manitoba historically. So the good people in Beausejour are celebrating the Liskey selection going to the Philadelphia Flyers. But yes, I was going to mention that as he beat me to it. So you guys will absolutely stay with it and keep going with the draft coverage. I am going to say my departures and say my goodbyes and say them I love yous to everybody as I have a family.
Are you saying that now or are you saying that in like 5-10 minutes?
I'll say it now so I can get on with the rest of my day. Unfortunately, I got some family obligations. So I will turn over good ship Illegal Curve to my good friend Dave Minuk and Ezra Ginsburg. They'll bring you continued coverage of the second day of the NHL Draft. The Jets up in the third round coming up here soon. Hopefully, Ezzy will be able to charge his phone in time. We remind everybody, of course, to keep watching. Keep it locked to illegalcurve.com and our YouTube channel all week long, as there's going to be plenty of news. It's going to be a newsy week, whether it's dev camp, whether it's roster occurrences, whether maybe there's trades still to come, whatever it might be. Keep it locked to Illegal Curve. I say goodbye to everybody. Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. Take it from here. Gentlemen, enjoy the next hour or so of coverage as I bid everyone adieu.
See you, Drew.
There he goes, folks. It is turned over. Well, Drew, you're supposed to remove yourself. There you go. All right. Now we got the heavy hitters on the show. Now it's me, and as that's the way it needs to be.
The big dogs.
We got rid of some of the dead weight in Drew. The best, of course, is that Ezzy's going to be like with his phone, like against the wall, plugged in, trying to get some juice in that thing. There's no way Ezzy has a portable power bank in his house.
No. I used to have one of those like charging pads. But no, I'm in my kitchen right now. I'm charging the phone. So
excellent.
We're gonna go live right through to the Jets pick at 71st overall. I think we're at, what are we at, pick 55 or 56?
55.
Right
yeah, the Flames just made a pick, so the Bruins are on the clock. There's only 15 picks to go, so it's not going to be that long. We don't think until the Jets make their first selection of day 2 of the NHL Draft. Of course, this is Illegal Curve Hockey. It's called our extended edition. It's our favorite weekend of the year because it is such a busy one, and we'll have full coverage once the show ends of all things Jets that are happening for them. We'll have interviews with the players, the prospects, and of course, their bios and everything you need to know about them on illegalcurve.com. Ezzy, we've got everything on Vigo Bjork, everything that we could know about Vigo Bjork. And we learned some things, right? We didn't know that Sasha and his dad, Sasha Boumedien's dad, and Vigo Bjork's dad played hockey together. I also didn't know that Vigo Bjork's aunt is a famous singer in Sweden. Did you know that?
Well, you're not talking about Bjork.
No, I'm not talking about Bjork. They spell it differently. It's like he's CK.
Bjork,
She's just K.
I'm pretty sure Bjork is from Iceland.
Yeah,
so,
actually, no, I think about it.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that, but I mean that's awesome. I mean, like I said, Dave, I mean whether Drew likes it or not, this is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, and basically the city of Winnipeg, and for Jets fans, it's become Vigo Mania. And I'm going to say it again because I don't think, I can't remember this much excitement for a Jets prospect since maybe Patrick Laine. I really don't think I'm overstating it there. And I realized that Laine was a second overall pick and that his offensive upside was much higher.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you were saying earlier, Dave, like, let's pump the tires a little bit. But no, like, look, Jets fans just went through a down year. Everybody knows that. 82 points, Jets missed the playoffs. This is the time for Jets fans to be excited. And like we said earlier, we don't know, the ceiling for Vigo Bjork, but if you listen to all the draft experts, and that's who we rely on, right? We rely on Craig Button. We rely on Shane Malloy. We rely on Jason Bukala and Sam Cosentino, these types of guys. And all they say is this guy is going to be an excellent center in the NHL, and he's got a really high upside. And again, I've mentioned this a bunch of times, over the last couple of days, but Craig Button calls him the Swedish Nick Suzuki. And if you're being compared to Nick Suzuki, who just played for Canada at the Olympics and just put up 100 points, a very quiet 100-point season, I should mention, that tells you something, right? So I think I'm not going to, stand in the way of Jets fans being very excited, because this is a guy who, like the draft experts said, if, he was 3 inches taller, he'd most likely be a top 3, maybe top 2 pick, right? So there's a lot of reasons to be excited about a guy who not only, is going to score a lot of goals in the NHL, but he's a guy that, has kind of the 200-foot element of his game where he's all over the ice, and he's a dog on a bone. Shane Malloy called him a Boston Terrier on our show a couple of weeks ago. So I think, Jets fans, be excited because I think Vigo Bjork's going to be an excellent NHL player.
Well, I don't know who the Jets Swedish scout is, Ezzy, but he has certainly had some serious influence on the Jets drafting since 2018 specifically. Not to say that I don't want to erase the history of the earlier, a Jacob Cederholm, who, if you remember, was one of the nicest guys. He was a 4th rounder in 2016.
Big boy.
Big boy, yeah.
I remember standing near him. What was he, 6'3", 6'4"? He was a big man.
Yeah, he was nice, really nice guy. But so Jacob Cederholm, we're not going to erase him in his history, but really since the David Gustafson draft in 2018, that was the Dallas draft, he was a 2nd rounder. Simon Lundmark, a 2nd rounder. Daniel Torgerson, a 2nd rounder. Anton Johannesson was a 5th rounder in 2020. In 2021, they only had the 4 picks. No Swedes in that draft. 2022, another 2nd rounder, Elias Salamonson. Fabian Wagner, a 6th rounder, who's with the Moose. In 2023, no Swedes, shocking actually. Alphonse Frey, another 2nd rounder. So they like using their 2nd rounders on Swedes, Ezzy, and then Sasha Boumedian and Victor Klinksell, who is who's definitely one of those players to watch. Again, undersized, but very skilled, and he did very well over in Sweden. So Sweetie Peg, Ezzy, is definitely a thing here with this draft class, especially in the upper echelon since 2018.
You like Sweetie Peg? What about Stockholm North? What about that?
But are we north of Stockholm? That's the only problem.
Yeah, or are we just the Canadian Stockholm? I don't know. We got to work on that, Dave. Because Sweetie Peg, I don't know if Sweetie Peg works.
It's kind of stupid, actually.
But the point is, don't be surprised. I think what you're saying, Dave, is don't be surprised if the Jets take a Swede with the 71st overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, well, or go. I mean, preferably they'll grab some CHL guys. That'd be my preference. If they can get a couple of kids from the WHL, that's always a nice addition to any. But again, you select for the best player available, the one that your scouts want. You don't, as we've been told over and over again, Ezra, they don't draft based on passports. So, although again, based on what I just went through, I'm not so sure. But anyways, we've got a run on the WHL guy just went to Dallas. We are on pick 60, though the Toronto Maple Leafs are on the clock. The 2nd round is almost over. This, of course, is an extended version of Illegal Curve Hockey. I'm Dave Minuk. He's Ezzy G, also known as Ezra Ginsburg. And Drew Mindell left us about 5 minutes ago, making it a much better show, in my opinion. Anyways, Ez, what else do we need to talk about in terms of what does the chat want to talk about? Maybe we'll throw it to the chat, give them an option. But is there anything that's kind of grabbing your attention through the draft that's related, or still? I mean, remember, folks, the summer is fast approaching. Dev camp next week. We'll have that covered. It's in its entirety. Then we'll come back the following Saturday. We'll kind of do a retrospective of the development camp. We'll do a retrospective of UFA, and which is happening on Wednesday. And then, of course, we've got I think 1 or 2 more shows after that. And then we go into summer hiatus mode. That's where I disappear into explore MB mode and do that walleye fishing we were talking about with Braden Yager. But for right now, Ezzy, the focus remains on the Jets. And, again, I don't want to overstate it. I don't want to make it a big thing. But really, I'm very curious about the conversations with Connor Hellebuck, because it seemed like that deal with Buffalo for the 4th overall pick was going to happen. I think if they, and again, we'll never know. They'll never tell us. I'm curious to know. I would think that Carson Carrolls would have been the pick at 4th overall to add a player of that nature and of that stature to the organization. Manitoba kid, be such a good story. So again, if the Jets could have convinced Buffalo to let them have their 8th so they could get a Vigo Bjork as well. And we don't know. I mean, look, if the Jets take Carrolls, maybe, Calgary changes the way they do things. So you don't know what sort of effect it would have had.
Well, most likely if Carrolls was taken at 4th instead of Dax and Rudolph, most likely Rudolph goes at the very, he probably doesn't go past 6 to Calgary, right? Just being an Alberta kid.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that Rudolph would have just you're right. If they're not taking Carrolls, they would have taken Rudolph. But again, like I said, it comes down to so you feel like, okay, there was definitely something there. There was a lot of smoke. So the question becomes, now that I understand what Drew's saying in terms of, I know what Murat said in terms of, there's nothing that's been said that wouldn't allow this relationship to proceed. right? Like the Jets have not said anything. Connor Hellebuck's camp hasn't said anything. But now that the genie's out of the bottle, that, regardless of we know that whether there was or was not a trade request, there's definitely a willingness to move on from both sides. So, how do you repair that? And again, how are you going to repair that? I understand what Dreger said yesterday, but that means that there's going to be a lot of work for the Jets GM to do over the next, couple of weeks, because after, like I said, when we go on summer hiatus, there's not a lot happening in the hockey world. And Cheveldayoff kind of teased it a little bit, saying you never know what could happen in September. Things could change with a phone call. But I mean, are you going to sell Connor Hellebuck on that?
Right. And these are all good questions, Dave. And, can you imagine being a fly on the wall in the Winnipeg Jets war room right now with, Chevy and Larry Simmons and Zinger, and to know, what is going on, right? Like, because what we're hearing, and we can only go off of what we're hearing, because even though the media, and specifically you, Dave, you represent IC on the calls, I mean, Chevy's not going to give us, I'll credit our boy Rennie, Sean Reynolds of Sportsnet. He was trying to get
a dog
Chevy,
on a bone.
Yeah, he was trying to get Chevy to, talk about, some of the offers he was getting, but for obvious reasons, Chevy's not going to go into and tell us, oh, I got this offer from Carolina, and I got this offer from Buffalo, and this offer from Florida, and et cetera, et cetera. But, wouldn't it be nice to know, and we won't know, but wouldn't it be, I would love to know, what types of conversations. We know he's having conversations, Dave, but we don't know what is the substance of those conversations, even though, Frank Saravalli, our boy, has leaked out some of the trade offers and everything like that. Like, that's what I want to know. Like, have the trade talks completely, dissipated? Is Chevy still talking to, a GM or two about trading Connor Hellebuck? And I think going back to what you were saying, earlier, just a few moments ago, can the Jets make some substantial moves that convince Connor Hellebuck that, hey, yeah, we've acquired this second line center, we've acquired this right shot defenseman. Now things are back on track. And that's what that idea that we were talking about, that, the 25-26 season, things really got off the track for the Jets. And, we don't know this because Connor Hellebuck and his agent, I forget who his agent is, Dave.
Ray Petkow.
Oh, Ray Petkow.
Good Manitoba guy.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything from them. Right. So we don't know their side. All we know is what we're hearing from, like we said, Frank Saravalli, Darren Dreger, the insiders, Elliot Friedman. I should mention Elliot obviously is on top of this too. So that's, when you ask me, like, what am I thinking about, in regards to the Jets? I'm thinking about a lot of things. Obviously, I'm thinking about who the Jets are going to take at 71st overall. But I'm also curious to know, like, does this continue, into next week? Like, are there more conversations? Does something happen next week? Like you said, things, once you get into kind of mid-July, things, as you know, Dave, as you mentioned, things quiet down big time kind of from mid-July to, basically the end of August, early September. And then things ramp up again. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly, there's certainly no shortage of balls in the air for the Jets, because as we talked about extensively earlier, right? Like, the Jets are after a second line center. And I think, it is worth mentioning that the Vigo Bjork thing, does change things, I think, right? Because Mark Scheifele is obviously your number one center for the foreseeable future for at least the next 5-6 years. But if you see Vigo Bjork as your second line center as early as the 27-28 season, like, you're not bringing in a guy and signing him to a 5-year contract, because then that's blocking Vigo Bjork. And then you could also, say, well, Vigo Bjork doesn't necessarily start as the second line center. Maybe he starts off more of a bottom six role. But the point is, there's a lot of these questions, and so far we don't have a lot of the answers, right? So yeah, I mean, I still think there's a trade coming. I know a lot of Jets fans are getting a little bit frustrated because Chevy hasn't pulled the trigger on a move yet, but I personally think that there are some moves coming, because I still think that the best way to address the holes on this team is via trade.
Yeah, I mean, it is like, I agree with you, Ezzy, but I just look at it and I think to myself, like, if it didn't happen yesterday where you could acquire a first round pick, right? Like, I mean, the whole thing that folks want is to replenish the cupboard, right? And get those top end prospects, because I mean, again, Vigo Bjork comes in and he's your top forward prospect. And so you're like, okay, well, that's great, but I mean, what about all the last, half dozen drafts? I mean, so this is something that is something that, like I said, you would have been able to do with first round assets. Now that the first round is over, now that you can't get a first rounder, I mean, it was like I said, Dreger was talking about it, and he's talking about futures. It's like, well, Florida's got guys into the, they can trade their 31 first rounder or 32, whatever it was. And I'm like, well, it's not going to be what the Jets want. Jets are not going to want a guy in first rounder. And I know you can only go so far in terms of trading your first rounders, your first round picks in terms of years, but it's 2026 and the Florida Panthers have traded their 2050 first rounder for something else. But I just think that from a Jets perspective, if you didn't do it before the draft and you're not recouping draft capital to replenish the stocks, because you're not doing it for a second rounder, which again is basically over in the next few minutes. I think Carolina's on the clock, or maybe the Sportsnet vote. Oh no, sorry, we're already into the third round, Ezzy. It's now started. Joe Aginla of the Vancouver Giants just went to Calgary. So I don't know the relation. Who's Joe Aginla, Ezzy?
No, that's Tija's younger brother.
It is his younger brother. Okay, well, he just got drafted by the Calgary Flames. So there's a nice little Aginla wearing a Flames jersey. That's pretty cool for the family, I'm sure. Chicago's on the clock, and then 5 picks later, the Winnipeg Jets will be making their first pick of the second round. And so I guess the question is, do you think, I mean, you look at what the Jets have drafted over the years, and like I said, they've got defense in the system. They've got, do you think they go center again here? Because I mean, at that point,
I have absolutely no idea. Like,
I want you to predict the player, the position, what league they're in currently.
No. We are, look, we primarily cover pro hockey. We cover the Jets. We cover the Moose. And when I say we, I mainly mean you cover the Moose, even though, I show up to, 4 or 5 Moose games a year, Dave.
You do.
And I obviously follow the Moose and talk to you regularly about the Moose, but we don't follow, the Russian prospects. We don't follow Swedish prospects. And, I have no idea, it could be a Canadian kid that's drafted at 71st overall. It could be an American kid that's drafted at 71st overall. It could be a center, a winger, a defenseman, a goaltender. I have absolutely no idea, Dave, but what we'll do is we'll provide as much information. We've got our elite prospects draft guide. Shout out to Cam Robinson and the folks at Elite Prospects. They do an excellent job.
They do.
So we'll give you as much information we can, not only on this show, but on the website, Dave. And I got to give you credit. You've been doing an amazing job covering Vigo Mania. I think Jets fans have plenty of information. If you haven't been to the website, go to the website, because Dave has posted a lot of good information about Vigo Bjork, including, did you say it was his aunt that was a famous singer?
Famous singer, yeah. I'm not too familiar with her work, because I'm not familiar with the Swedish folk singers, but or maybe.
But you are a fan of ABBA, though.
I was a fan of ABBA. That's true. Hold on, here. This is his aunt, Charlotte Perrelli. She's a Swedish singer, and she's released 11 solo albums, 4 books, and she has clothing connections.
Oh.
So there you go. That's
maybe we'll tell Drew about that. I mean, granted, I don't know if it's women's clothing or not, but I mean,
probably women's clothing.
To each his own, Dave.
Yeah, we don't judge here at the Legal Curve, so that's fine. 68th pick or 67th pick was just made by the Rangers, which means we're on pick 68 to the Stanley Cup champion Carolina Hurricanes, then the Leafs, then the Preds, then the Winnipeg Jets will be going at 71. So as he's getting another phone call from spam, which is not a good. Oh, there, you're back, Ez.
No. What I was see, obviously that didn't work. I was trying to open up another browser to get ready to look up who the Jets draft pick once we find out who the draft pick is going to be. But obviously,
you can probably go back to your computer now if you want, and then
no, Dave. If you think my computer still has some juice, it's out. I'm exclusively on my phone right now. Like I said, Dave, this hasn't been my best show in terms of technology.
That's okay. You know what? You sound good. You look good. We appreciate the effort. You didn't bail out. You didn't bail out like when Drew Mindell, when times got tough. You stuck around. You fought through it. You're a professional through and through. Well, as we're getting closer and closer to that pick being made, and again, like I said, I guarantee you one thing: we'll have had. Look, unless he's Jets prospect adjacent, we'll most likely have very little information other than what we can read to you. Now let's get it in the chat. Hold on. Desert Lab says I'm almost alone in my room. That's not quite true. As he's still here. Hold on. Here's some names of some guys available: Jonah Siverston, Ethan McKenzie, Mons Gudmundsson, and Patrick Plumans. So Tom Servo has named 4 players that are on his list that could be named by the Winnipeg Jets with 3 picks to go. So Doug is hoping to hear news of a Jets trade, 7 and 62 for some draft capital. I don't know, Doug. I got to say, it hasn't. That doesn't seem like it's materializing. I mean, we saw there was a Niederreiter jersey on display at Canada Life Center. And by the way, and I think Frosty put this in the chat, Nezzy, and I'm gonna make this point now while we wait for the Jets to make a pick. But a big shout out to everyone who came out. There were over 600 people yesterday at Canada Life Center, and great energy in there. And it felt fun being.
There were a lot more people than that.
I know, but it also felt it was a lot of fun being at a draft again. Like again, as you know, we covered all the drafts up until 2017 live and in person, and then we started doing it remote. But I got to tell you, like, the energy was great yesterday. It was great to see everyone who came up and said hello. And I don't know, it felt different than doing like one of these shows, or even like a live show when we do our BP ones. Like, love those shows as well. But there's just something about the draft. It was a lot of fun. And again, I love the energy from the folks. I love the fact that they booed Bettman when he was on TV, and of course cheered like crazy when Vigo Bjork was made selection made by the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, that was, everything in a sense was a highlight. Again, thanks to True North and the Jets for allowing us to broadcast live from the draft party yesterday. It was a lot of fun, but the highlight for me was for sure when Vigo Bjork was traded. And then you had hundreds of people cheering because, let's be honest here, most Jets fans wanted Vigo Bjork to be selected by the Jets at 8th overall, and they got their guy. So that was a lot of fun. There's a lot of buzz in the air, obviously, with the potential of Connor Hellebuck being traded. Like you said, Dave, we heard that the 4th overall pick was in play from the Buffalo Sabres. Ultimately, that trade fizzled out. But like I said earlier, Jets fans just had to go through a very tough year. Like the 25-26 season basically couldn't have gone any worse for the Jets.
Yeah.
When you talk about the amount of the 11-game losing streak and everything like that, and just that 30-game stretch, in December and January. So I was happy for Jets fans. This is the time, like Murat said on our show, this is a time to kind of dream and to be, hopeful about the future. And, we had, Sasha Boumediene on, Braden Yager, Colby Barlow, Owen Martin, all really bright kids and, players that, are going to be playing for the Jets sooner rather than later, right? And we expect in the next, couple of years, well, specifically with Braden Yager, it could be as early as next season that he's having an impact for the Jets. But when you're talking about, Boumediene and Colby Barlow and Owen Martin, you're talking about guys that, most likely you'll be NHLers 2 or 3 years from now, right?
Right.
But it was just, a lot of fun, like you said, to be part of it. And to have something positive to talk about, because there's been a lot of negativity around this team, and I get it. I realize why Jets fans, if I have an opportunity to speak to Jets fans right now, like, I get it. Like, I understand why there's a lot of pent up frustration, not only because of, how the season went, but because when you're looking forward to next season, you're trying to say, okay, well, how's this team got better? Right.
Right.
And we're expecting internal improvements, right? Like, we're expecting, Elias Salamonson, to play most of the season. Obviously, the injury is going to probably prevent him from playing all 82 games. But let's say, 70 games or whatever, we're expecting Elias Salamonson to play. And, you're expecting Cole Perfetti to have a bounce back year. You're expecting Adam Lowry to have a bounce back year. You're expecting Brad Lambert to take another step. You're expecting a guy like Danny Zhilkin to factor in more, for the Jets. So I think that there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. I think, better days ahead. And like I've said this to you before, Dave, not necessarily on the show, but I think that the Jets absolutely can bounce back and be a playoff team next year. Like, I don't think they were as bad as the record indicated last year. And, we obviously have to wait and see, what types of moves Chevy makes. But I certainly think that the Jets can be, back in a playoff spot. I don't know if they win the division next year. I think, Colorado, Minnesota, Dallas, to me, are still the top three teams in the Central. But I certainly think that the Jets can bounce back and be a playoff team next year.
Well, the Jets are on the clock, although some people are saying that they must be ahead of us, Ezzy, because they're saying that the Jets have already made their pick. But quick, before we get into that, we should mention another Manitoban went, Zach Lansard from St. Anne, Manitoba, playing for the Regina Pats, 68th overall to the Carolina Hurricanes. So the Hurricanes they love their Manitobans, Ezzy. So they went and picked Zach Lansard, and then I'm just trying to get the Jets pick right now because my thing is refreshing.
Just
Samuel.
Quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. Do we have the pick?
Samuel Rennick, Fargo Force of the USHL. So he is he's from Slovakia, which is not an area the Jets have drafted a lot of.
I was going to say, have the Jets ever drafted a player from Slovakia?
Oh, is he a goaltender? Oh, he's a goalie.
Okay.
Hold on, Ezzy. I was getting a little feedback there, but whenever I pull up I guess he's a goaltender. Interesting. Okay. So the Jets go with a goalie in the third round with their first pick. He's playing for the Fargo Force, which is that who's is that Kelly? Who runs Fargo?
Kerry Eads.
Kerry Eads, that's right. Yeah,
Kerry.
And
we got him on the show before talking about USHL prospects.
Yeah. Kerry's been a good guest in the past. So there you go. Samuel Rennick, a goaltender from Slovakia, currently playing for the Fargo Force. I don't know where he's going next year.
How's his name spelled, Dave? Is it Renik?
No, it's H. Hrenak.
Okay. Samuel Rennick. Okay.
Yeah. He is a 6'3". He catches left, currently 190 pounds. This is all courtesy of our friends at Elite Prospects. He was ranked 118th overall by Elite Prospects, 88th overall by Hockey News, 54th overall by our good friend Chris Peters. And he was the 9th ranked goaltender by NHL Central Scouting.
And do we know yet, Dave, is he committed to playing the NCAA next year?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at that right now. They just have him for the Fargo Force. He played 9 games for Fargo in 25-26.
Okay. Not a lot of goaltenders were taken in the first 2 rounds, right?
No.
I don't think a goalie was taken in the first round. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there wasn't any goaltender taken, right?
Yeah. No, that's, I think you're right. I don't know. I mean, it's funny because we were doing the show, and because we were doing the show, I was so fixated on everything we were talking about that it was hard to know. But
we're caught up in Vigo Mania, Dave.
We were caught up in Vigo Mania. So the Jets go with a goaltender with their first pick of the third round on day 2 of the NHL draft. Well, you know what? This is probably we're again, we'd do the show for another hour if we could technically, Ezzy. We could do the show all day, but some of us have responsibilities to a little site called legalcurve.com, making sure it's up to date. And we'll see if we can jump on a chat with Samuel to have that for you on our YouTube channel and on our legalcurve.com. So as maybe just kind of, we'll do some summation. Any final thoughts from the best weekend of the hockey season? It's always exhausting, but it's a fun one.
Yeah, and I just mentioned this, 10 minutes ago or so, but it's just been a lot of fun, doing these broadcasts these last couple days. It was great to, interact with the fans yesterday at Canada Life Center, and yeah, it's going to be, interesting to follow the rest of the draft, see if there's any moves that are Jets related. Which, as you mentioned, Dave, you're going to be all over it for illegalcurve.com. So just thanks for everyone who's watching live right now, or who was watching live and or listening on the podcast. We appreciate it. We've got, I think we're going to do 2 more Saturday shows, right? I think July 11th is going to be our last Saturday show of the summer, and then we're going to take a little bit of a summer break. Like Dave mentioned, he's going to be doing a little bit of fishing. I'm going to be doing a little bit of walking and biking, because my goal this summer is to drop 20 pounds. I'm currently at 260, so we'll see if we can we'll see if Ginsburg can get down to 240. But yeah, just thanks for everyone for watching, listening on the podcast, interacting with us last night at Canada Life Center, and reading the website. And stay tuned, because as we've talked about for the last couple of hours, we're expecting Chevy to be pretty busy over the next couple of weeks.
Exactly. So I'm not going to go long. Usually I would go long here. Well, big thanks to all of our sponsors. You know who they are. We played an extra round of commercials this show, but big thanks to everyone who supports us as well as you. But I'm going to jump off this show and I'm going to jump on to the call with Samuel Rennick. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. We'll find out when he joins us very shortly. And of course, that will be up on the website very soon thereafter. So thanks very much for joining us on this extended day 2 of the NHL draft coverage here on Illegal Curve. Before you go and enjoy the rest of your Saturday, either watching the show or getting out and about, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Let's get this channel. We got to get our subscriber numbers up. I appreciate everyone who watches, but make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're liking the the content we're putting up there for you to watch, and make sure you drop a comment, because that also helps with the algorithm. As the only person who explain algorithms, John Ginsburg. He's not on the show. Maybe we'll get him to do it next show. But that's it for us. So thanks very much to Ezra Ginsburg, to Drew Mindell, to myself, to Murat, and we'll have plenty of great content at development camp all next week and on illegalcurve.com the rest of the weekend. Thanks very much for joining us, everyone. We'll see you, unless there's a need to do a pop-up show. We'll see you next Saturday on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.